You are live, Madam Chair. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Sierra. Good morning to the citizens of Douglas County. Good morning, Board of Commissioners. Today is Monday, November 28, 2022. It is now 10 a.m. and welcome to our virtual Zoom work session. I'll start off with roll call. I'll start with District 1 Commissioner Henry Mitchell III.
Present.
District 2 Commissioner and Vice Chairman Kelly Robinson.
Present, Madam Chair. District
3 Commissioner Tarenia Carthen.
Present.
District 4 Commissioner Ann Jones-Guider.
Present.
And Ramona Jackson-Jones, Chairman, present. Board of Commissioners, we do have an established quorum this morning. I'll start with public. First of all, I hope everyone had an amazing and wonderful Thanksgiving holiday. And certainly want to yield to the clerk to see if we have any public comment this morning.
Good morning, Chairman. Yes, we did have one citizen to sign up for public comment this morning, Mr. Vaughn Dixon. But before I call on you, Mr. Dixon, I'll just remind you, you have 3 minutes to address the board. Once you reach your 3 minutes, I will remind you to wrap up your comments. So Mr. Dixon, if you could restate your name and your subject matter, you can begin now. Mr. Dixon, are you on the line?
You might want to share with him how to take himself off mute.
Yeah, if you muted yourself, Mr. Dixon, hit *6. I actually do not see him on the line. In the meantime, I will reach out to see if there are any other citizens that are on the line that would like to speak this morning. Being none, Chairman, I turn it back over to you.
Thank you so much, Clerk. All right, Board of Commissioners, we'll move right into our agenda. Board of Commissioners, be aware tomorrow we do have approval of our minutes, Commission meeting minutes of November 15th and November 14th, and the executive session minutes of November 14th. Just be prepared to approve tomorrow accordingly. Board of Commissioners, we do have tomorrow today we have two presentations. The 2021 annual financial audit report, that is the commission meeting only. Is that for tomorrow, Clerk?
Chairman, yes, ma'am. It's my understanding that both of these are for tomorrow's meeting.
And then also the customer service presentation is for tomorrow as well, correct?
Correct.
Okay, just want to make sure. Board of Commissioners, we're going to move on to tab number 4, which is under public hearing. Well, the 2023 budget. We have with us this morning, do we have our CFO, Ramona Bivens, on here? Are we presenting this morning as well?
Good morning, Madam Chair. I have just a brief, a summary level. Tomorrow I'll go into details, but I did provide a summary level to attach to the agenda for the public to have, and I will go over that real quickly.
Okay.
All right, thank you. So again, good morning, Madam Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, Commissioners. Hold on, I need to share my screen. See if I can find it. Hold on. Yep. I had it. Give me just a minute. Okay, can you all see the screen?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so this is the 2023 proposed budget that Finance, mostly Rosalind and myself, have put together for the board. We do have a balanced budget. We were out of balance last week, but we came up with some things, spoke with Madam Chair and Mr. Vice Chair, and have some items that were agreeable to balance the budget. I will go into all those details tomorrow, though. So first, I want to show a general fund total revenue summary. This shows the actual from 2021. This is kind of give a history where we had collected a total of 113,526,000 in revenues. The budget adopted for 2022 was 104,631,000. The amended budget is 111,990,619. We estimating that we'll actually collect 124.9 million. And so our proposed budget, because of our policy on budgeting recurring revenues, you'll see that the recurring revenues that we have here is $124.9 million. That is $12.9 million from the prior year's budgeted revenues. The most significant increase is in our property taxes. As you all know, when we adopted our millage rate back in July, I believe, we had, I believe it was a 30% increase in our digest. So that did generate a significant amount of property taxes. That line item also includes our loss, which we all know has been increasing. Has increased over the last couple of years. So that is included in that amount as well. The next is our general fund total expenditure summary. As shown on the revenues, we show some historical data. Our 2021 actual of 107.7 million, 107.8 million. Our 2022 adopted budget was 104.6 million, amended a 111.9 million, and our estimated expenditures is $106 million, which is less than what our projected revenues are. So we anticipate increasing the fund balance some. Our 2023 proposed budget is $124.9 million. And again, that's $12.9 million more than what we have. And a lot of that includes, the board did approve increases for public safety and other employees. So a lot of that is included, the majority of that is included in there. And then I'll go into other details tomorrow what some of the other significant increases are. So this just shows a picture of how the general fund expenditures are broken up. So our operating, our M&O account, maintenance and operations, this is our day-to-day operations. That's 44% of the total budget, where the largest percent of our funding expenditures rather are in the areas of salaries and benefits. That's 55% of our total budget, and that is normal. Most organizations, the largest expenditure that they have is their human capital. And then we added Patsy's, the additional items that departments had requested. That's 1% of our budget for this year, for the proposed budget. As we've been talking since I've come on board in July about separating our special revenue funds out of the general fund, and we have made an attempt to do that with this. So this just shows all of our special revenue funds, which includes animal control services.
This is Phyllis.
District Attorney's Office has a grant. The gate funds.
I may not be able
We
to
need
make
everyone
it
to,
for
excuse me, 1 minute.
I'll pick it up.
Need everyone to mute the mics, please. Thank you. You have the floor again, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Drug abuse treatment and education. You have the E911. We have fire protection services and EMS, a hotel motel tax, law library, our neighborhood stabilization program, the sheriff asset forfeiture funds, the sheriff inmate commissary. The sheriff also has the funds for some general grants for other programs. We have the sidewalk fund, state court technology fund. We have the UNINC, which is our special services district, and our victims assistance fund. So as you can see, for 2022, the adopted budget was $38.2 million. Our amended was 39.8. We're proposing 48.1 million, that $8.3 million increase, and that the majority of the increase is in our UNINC and in our fire protection services. We also have enterprise funds, which are these are funds that should generate enough revenue to cover the expenses, and if they don't, the general fund would have to subsidize those. And historically, we've only had the landfill and solid waste there, but this year we moved Connect Douglas over to there because it should be an enterprise fund as well. So as you can see, the total adopted budget for 2022 was 5.1 million, amended to 5.3, and we are proposing a $9.3 million budget. And the majority of that increase is in Connect Douglas because now it is back pretty much to full operation from the discussions that we've had and from the information that we've received in finance. Excuse me. And the next category is our internal service funds, and that's our medical self-insurance, and then workers' compensation. And we're only showing, you can see the numbers here, 16.9 is adopted, 17 million, or 17.1 million, if we round up, is amended, and 17.8 is the proposed 2023. And that's an increase of $670,000, with the majority of that in our self-insurance fund. And then our debt service fund, thankfully, fortunately, the county right at this time does not have anything budgeted for next year because we paid off the debt this year. So it was 16.2 million. And so as you see, there's a decrease of 16.2 because we're not budgeting anything at this time for debt services as we don't have any debt at this moment. Then our capital projects funds, the capital transportation funds, those have gone away for now. Once we receive any additional information on if we will be having any of those funds, we will amend those into the budget for next year. Right now, all we have included in there is SPLOS, and it says debt service, but it shouldn't say debt service. That just it should be for SPLOS funds, and that's $17 million. And finally, this is just a summary of all funds. For general fund, again, you have the adopted, amended, and proposed. So we're proposing $124.9 million under revenues. Under expenditures and revenues. So that's a $12.9 million increase. On the special revenue funds, we're proposing $48.1 million, which is an $8.3 million increase. Capital projects funds, $17 million, which is a decrease of $884,000. No projected revenues or expenditures for the debt service funds. Enterprise funds, we're projecting $9.3 million, so almost a $4 million increase. And then internal service funds, we're projecting a $17.8 million.
I believe that's a huge increase. Moving the street economy.
Yeah. I mean, ours is expected to generate.
Please close your mics, please, everyone.
Please, everyone, please mute your mics.
Thank you. So we have a total all funds of 2022 adopted was $199,577,161. The amended is $208,871,198. The proposed total all funds is $217,085,604, and that's an $8.2 million increase over the amended for next year. And Madam Chair, that's all I have. I just wanted to present just a brief high-level summary in preparation for tomorrow's much longer presentation.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
CFO Devins. For the commissioners, you have any questions for our CFO?
Madam Chair,
Mr. Vice Chairman, you have the floor.
not necessarily questions, but more comments. Good morning, Madam CFO.
Good morning.
Very good. Just to my, as you feel my comments, this is really to my peers. As we stated in our last Board of Commissioners retreat, we're going to take this budget, at least the preliminary comments that came out of that meeting into our Finance Committee, to which we did. Can you confirm for that, Madam CFO, that we did talk about this during our Finance Committee, a preliminary draft of this budget?
Yes, Mr. Vice Chair, you are correct. We did discuss this during the last Finance Committee meeting.
Second, out of that Finance Committee meeting, in which you were a member, Madam Chair is a member, Deputy County Administrator Perry and Assistant County Administrator Tiffany Stanley are members, including Ross as a support member, Miller. During that time, did we reconcile what the board talked about in their retreat till this presentation that's going to be provided tomorrow? Is that accurate?
Yes, sir, that is correct.
One of the things that's always important and to my peers is to get back to normal regarding the budget. A stable process. I have to say that. It is a stable process. Anything you have said has been reconciled. Our job as oversight is to both advise and consent. We did acknowledge everybody's comment was submitted, it was captured, it was codified, and there will be a reconciliation of whatever happened last time to whatever's presenting tomorrow. As you know, tomorrow we'll have a formal presentation by Madam Chair to the full board and the public. But I want you to have assurance that everything has been captured. I want her to confirm that one more time. Did you capture everybody's comments? Madam
Yes,
Chair?
sir. Yes, sir, Mr. Vice Chair. We did capture everyone's comments.
And recognizing, obviously, we have to listen to the public first before we get into debate. So it's not so much to do that, guys. I just want you to acknowledge that everything's there. And I just wanted to highlight two more points. One, I noticed you said we had 44% operating costs, or M&O, excuse me, and another 54%, which is salaries, which left at 1% for, I don't know what taxes are. That's old school. I'm more of a BIR guy, but my peers get it. 1%. 1% is all we had, guys. Budget was locked. It was an easy meeting in finance committee. And those things are already locked up. So that $20 million from my elected peers, they had to knock down 1 penny. So give them room. I'm going to give you guys, give them some room that they had to make some decisions. Right? And so to the elected officials that are listening, all we had was a penny to work with. We went from a nickel, Madam Chair, when you came on board, down to a penny. Pay attention. There's not much discretion in there. Now, we do recognize a big chunk of that it didn't really just evaporate. There are some salaries in there. It is the 10%, the public safety, and the 5%. So that ate up a lot of that. That's $8 million of discretionary that could have been done. I don't want it to be confused when y'all get this budget that all of that went to salary. That decision that we made, which was to take care of the people, takes away our capacity to do other things. But at the same point, obviously, we've got a new funding mechanism, and I'm sure you guys will talk about that in the future. So I just wanted to make those three statements. I have nothing else to say. I look forward to seeing what the final presentation is tomorrow. Madam Chair, I yield the floor. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Vice Chair.
Oh, one more thing, Madam Chair.
You have the floor.
Madam CFO, but with that, full transparency, did you follow the instructions which are consent out of that finance committee? Did you provide the Board of Commissioners with the full budget prior to this meeting? Yes, no?
Yes, sir, I did.
All right, that's all I want to know. Madam Chair, I yield. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for
Madam
Commissioner Gotti? You have the floor.
Yes, Director Bivens, could you break down the public safety amount that's in this budget, please?
One moment. Let me grab some other documents here. I was just looking at the summary. So on the public safety, we have a proposed budget of $41.2 million, Commissioner Guider. Now, when you say breakdown, exactly what are you asking for?
Additional things that were added for 2023.
Okay, hold on. I did not have that prepared for today. That is going to be.
I can ask. Let me just ask a question.
Part of it is salaries. The majority of it is salaries, and also salaries for, I want to say, about 40 plus positions for half a year for the new fire station that's coming on board next year. That's the majority of the increase in public safety for the fire. Well, actually, I'm sorry. I take that back. That is, the fire's not included in the general fund. That $1.8 million increase is going to be, again, salaries for the sheriff's department. The majority of it is.
Okay, but the compression issue is in there.
Some of it is.
And the increase that I think we voted on at our last meeting. We've had a long weekend, so wonderful weekend, by the way. But everything is in there that we had talked about. The 10% was in the ARPA, from the ARPA funds.
Yes.
So
go
ahead.
No, go ahead. So the $124 million in the revenue includes a little over about almost $3 million in ARPA funds to offset in the general fund. So the $1.8 million again in public safety, the majority of that again is for the sheriff's office, and it is for that 5% because the board gave a 10% increase, 5% in 2022 budget, 5% in the 2023 budget, and that is included in that number, as well as compression issue that we addressed that the board voted on at the prior meeting that our department head Director Carter from Human Resources presented. That is, all of that is included in this budget, in the proposed budget.
Okay, thank you. And also, at the retreat, we had talked about the percentage of the digest collection. And since that meeting, I've talked to Mr. Corbin. So he explained it's already built in as far as the policy that we already have standing. So we did not raise the percentage of collection.
No, okay, no, ma'am. So I also spoke with Mr. Corbin as well, and I've had a conversation with Mr. Vice Chair. So that policy that we were recommended on the, which I'll be discussing later, revising that because you are correct. The collection rate is already included in our current policy because our policy states that we will budget no more than our prior year's recurring revenues. So if our recurring revenue includes tax revenues, then 100% of that, of what we collected, then that collection rate is built into that already. So I am actually taking that off of the table on those policies, which I will address later on in the meeting because they are on the agenda.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that because for years we talked about the collection rate affected us, but with the new policy, it does not. That was just passed, I think, last year or year before. So just wanted to make sure we didn't adjust that percentage of collection. So, all right. With that, I yield back. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Commissioner Snyder. Any other comments for Lamar?
Yes,
Okay, Commissioner Carpenter, you have the floor.
thank you so much. Good morning, Ms. Bivens. My question to you is, are you including ARPA funds into the overall budget? Because it's not recurring revenue, so that should be minused out. But I think I just heard you say that revenue was added in because we received it, but it's not recurring.
Good morning, Commissioner Carthen. So yes, I did say that, but however, that is included under other financing sources. When you look at the revenue summary, it is included as under other financing sources because we did have it for 2022 and we have it again for 2023. Mm-hmm. So I didn't include it as part of the other revenue. It is included as part of the total revenues, but it's other financing sources, which is a transfer in from another fund, which is the ARPA fund.
Okay, so my question to you is just to kind of, and this is just for my own sanity, if we could, and if you've already included, let me know, but if we could just get an actual snapshot of what the prior year recurring revenues were. I know that we had some amendments, right, along the way, and we haven't collected for all of 2022 as of yet, right?
That is correct.
Okay. So, but we're basing 2023 on the recurring revenues of 2022, which we are still in. So you're projecting what we will collect, correct?
Yes, ma'am. That's I don't know if you have a copy of the revenue summary in front of you, or I can go back to it, but it shows our estimated actual. That's what we have calculated that we will collect for this year.
Got you. And what is that amount?
So the
minus
total,
the other funds, minus any special funds or anything like that.
Right.
What is it?
So basically, we'll take the 124.9 total revenue and subtract out the 2.9 of other financing sources, and that gives us 122 million, a little over 122 million dollars.
Okay, and and that is a difference of what from prior year 2020.
So 2021 amended budget is well, let me take the $4 million off. So one. Looks like just doing some quick math here. $107.9 million for the 2022 amended. That's from the amended budget, but it's actually 122 what we estimated. So scratch that, 122 million. And then prior year, we had 2021, we had 113.5, but 1.6 of that was other financing sources, which is transfers in from other funds. So that leaves me about $111 million.
I was thinking 110 all in, so 111 million. Now we dropped almost 13 million. Okay.
Yes.
All right. I will look into it. Thank you so much for this, Hi.
Oh, sure.
I appreciate it. I yield, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Carter. Commissioner Guider, you have the floor.
Yes, while they were talking, I thought of something. We have not finished the mediation with the cities. So how did you handle funds coming from another source?
Commissioner Guider, I'm sorry, you said we haven't finished the.
We have not finished the negotiation over lost.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Okay.
So how are you handling that in this budget?
As of now, we have left everything as it is with no additional increases and no decreases. We're optimistic and thinking positive that eventually that we will come to an agreement, and we will at least at a minimum collect the same amount from those other entities as we are this year.
Okay, if the agreement is set in motion between now and when do we vote on this budget? The last meeting of the year?
December 13th.
Will you adjust accordingly?
Of course, yes, ma'am. Any adjustments that need to be made between now and then for any reason, whether it's that or something else, would definitely be made accordingly and communicated with the board in a timely manner.
All right. Have you talked to the sheriff's office? I don't know how to say this. Just have you talked to them about anything?
I have not. No, ma'am. We have not spoken with them. They have not reached out to us or on anything.
Okay. All right. I yield back. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Commissioner Guider. Any other remarks?
Yeah, just one, Madam Chair.
Commissioner Mitchell.
So just one quick question. I just want to know, what was that percentage that you came up with based on prior year? I know you gave some numbers, but what was the percentage based on the prior year collection? And I know we're not done and we won't be done, but we look at a window. And first, what is that percentage and what is the window that you look at to decide that percentage?
Okay, Commissioner Mitchell, I'm thinking you're referring to the property tax collections. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. I apologize.
Okay,
Yes,
that's okay. That's okay, not a problem. Because I know we talked about a different types of revenue, so I want to make sure it wasn't the total.
Right.
We talked about the taxes, not a problem. So, based on the information that we received from the tax commissioners, I believe last year's collection rate was either 98 or 99%. I want to say it's 99%. So we're making the assumption that we will collect 99% of the taxes for this year as well, because I think the 5-year or even maybe 6-year history that he sent us, we've collected 99% of the bill of the taxes assessment, the taxes that were billed, except for 1 year was at 98%. So we're presuming that we will collect 99% of what he billed, which is what was on the digest.
So this budget is based off of 99% or the 97% that we talked about, or, I mean, we don't have to deal with the 99 if we so choose as a board, but however, you're basing it on the 99% collection rate, correct, or not?
Okay, so I'm basing it on the policy that is in place now that says we cannot budget more than the prior year's recurring revenue. So the recurring revenue that we projected for the property taxes is we use that 99% rate that Tax Commissioner Baker provided in the email to everyone last month or earlier this month, I'm sorry. So with the 97%, we're not doing it because that hasn't been adopted into a policy. We're following the policy that exists at this time.
Well, I got you, and I'm not speaking of the policy that was recommended, I think by the finance chair or whomever else. I'm speaking of, meaning what percentage that you used, and based on our prior policy that states that we would deal with no more than what was collected prior year, correct? That prior year, based on
Yes.
that collection rate. Okay, so with that, that was 99. You're telling me 98
Yes,
or 99. Okay,
Yes.
so what are you using this time around? So you're using 99% based on this budget, if I'm hearing you correctly. Or
Yes,
am I
sir,
not?
that is correct.
Okay, got you. So we're all in at 99% based on this budget, and we're not being conservative as we spoke about when we were at 93 and 97. And we was trying to find some sweet spot, but you're going all in and based off the last numbers of the percentage of 99%.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I got it. Okay.
Okay.
And that's what this budget is based off.
Yes.
And last but not least, so the ARPA funds that were used, that's a part of this budget. No longer will be reoccurring, but I'm just using that base point. With that being stated, with the sheriff, did we make any adjustment? I know you got a 5 and then a 10% or vice versa. I'm not sure kind of how it rolled out. Which way did it roll out, first of all? Was it a 5 and then a 10% increase on salaries? Or was it a 10 and a 5? Or did we make it a 10-10?
So if I recall, it was the total initial was 10%, which the board approved earlier this year. With I think 5% was this year, and the remaining 5% for next year. Now there was a request for an additional 5% on top of that that is not included in this budget.
It's not.
No, sir.
Oh. Yeah. I think that's what some of the colleagues was kind of speaking of. Okay. So basically, it was what we approved when we dealt with the ARPA fund salary. I don't remember that whole layout that we did. And you wasn't around, Ms. Bivin, at that time, though. But that the numbers that you're using, and again, make sure I understand. Was it 5 prior year and 10 this year, or am I in the reverse of that?
So I believe it was 5 this year and 5 next year for a total of 10.
Madam CFO, I think it was 10% this year.
It was 10. Okay,
5%
my apologies. I
Yeah,
stand corrected.
5%
So
next.
10% this year, Commissioner Mitchell, and 5% next year.
Correct.
Okay. If you understand what I was basically. Okay, thank you again.
Yes.
Okay. All
My
right.
apologies.
No, you're fine. You're fine. You weren't around, so that's okay. Good enough. Madam Chair, I think I'll yield at this point, but I think I'll be getting back with you, Ms. Bivens, about a couple other questions I've got that we'll talk, offline about some other things I've got.
Okay.
But thank you again. I'll yield back.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Mitchell. Madam CFO, I certainly just would like to commend this Board of Commissioners for their efforts in increasing our public safety budget. So when I came into office, that public safety sheriff's office budget was $33 million. Today, did I hear you say it was $41 million? Today, that's the value of that budget. Which is quite impressive in comparison to previous administrations.
So public safety, in 2021, what we actually spent was $38.3 million. The amended budget for this year is $39.3, but we're projecting 38, about the same as last year that was spent. However, next year we're proposing $41.2 million. So it's a $1.8 million increase, almost a $2 million increase. Yes, ma'am.
Mm-hmm. And it was 33 again, like I said, 2017 when I took office. Okay, well, I'm quite sure our commissioners will have some questions for you tomorrow, but I just wanted to bring to light that we have put our arms around that budget, which had sat there for years, and there were no increases. So we're going to move on, board. If you don't have any more comments or questions, we'll move on to tab number 5 to consider, and thank you again, Madam CFO. Tab number 5 is to consider amending the Douglas County Code of Ordinances regarding Chapter 9, Finance and Taxation, Article 2, Purchasing. Latanya Amons, Director Amons, you have the floor.
Hi, good morning, Madam Chair, Board of Commissioners, Douglas County employees, and the public. I bring before you proposed changes to Chapter 9, Finance and Taxation, under the Code of Ordinances, particularly pertaining to the purchasing department. And I didn't know if we wanted to go through each proposed change here, or if we'll save that for tomorrow.
No, you save it for tomorrow. Just wanted to just wrap, give us just a Reader's Digest version of what you're presenting tomorrow.
Okay, so the Reader's Digest version is to amend and bring the code up to actually like 2022, and it is to be a reflection of how we're actually operating, and just clearing up some languages and some language and oversight in the code, and one that will help move the procurement department into the future to be more efficient and more effective in serving the public.
Thank you so much, Director. Any questions for Director Amon's board? Okay. Vice Chairman, I see you turn your camera on. No questions?
Yeah, well, just more of a comment, Madam Chair. I'll defer my comments until I hear from the public. It's a public hearing, so I'm fine. Keep going.
Okay. If there are no questions, tab number six is my understanding. We want to table that. Is that correct, Clerk? Tab number 6. Just before I read it, yeah. Board of Commissioners, tab number 6, is to consider amending the Douglas County Code of Ordinances regarding Chapter 5, Article 11, which is the Animal Control Advisory Board, and we want to table that, and we'll bring that back to you at a later date, Board.
Madam Chair?
Madam
Chair?
Yes, Vice Chairman, you have the floor.
Yeah, as a point of order, I want to get clarity on this. We have done a public advertisement for a public hearing. And so if the board is okay with no objection, let's table this officially tomorrow.
Yes.
The only thing when you do advertisements and people are expecting, they're not following these meetings, and they show up, they're like, okay, what happened? So as a point of order, I would just say tomorrow, just bring up, we table it at that point, Madam Chair, because you've advertised for this and now all of a sudden it disappears. You may want to have a continuity point from business meeting to business meeting, but that's, I'm looking for maybe the clerk or the attorney to confirm that. But I mean, on this matter, you did a public hearing. It's not like a normal business item. This was a hearing that was advertising, but I yield to those guys. I yield, Madam Chair. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. And I agree that it needs to stay on here, and certainly I'll chime in with our county attorney. Do you echo the same sentiments, county attorney?
Yes,
Okay. Therefore, it will be a hearing. I'll just we will formally table it tomorrow. All right, we'll move to tab number 7. Again, directors, this is just the Reader's Digest for the board to consider amending the Douglas County Code of Ordinances regarding Article 2, Section 3-53, temporary alcohol permits, Chapter 12.5, -17, public consumption of beer, wine, and spirits in its public buildings and parks. Legal Department, Attorney Coleman. I believe your mic is muted, Attorney.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair.
Oh, no problem.
I think this particular proposal is probably one which zoning maybe speaks better to. I'm not sure if Allison's on the line, but she can probably.
Yes, I agree, Madam Chair. This should be presented by Allison.
Hey, everybody. How are you?
Hello, Allison. Good morning.
All right. Thank you. I do want to thank Attorney Coleman and his staff. They have provided some helpful feedback as we've been working through the amendments. We did present this briefly, I think maybe the October 31st meeting. I do have some slides that I would be happy to share with you again today, or we can save them for tomorrow. But essentially the purpose of this text amendment is to bring forth for your consideration the potential of aligning the code in regard to beer, wine, and alcohol at temporary events, beer, wine, and liquor at temporary events, and consider that in public parks and other county facilities. So it was identified that there are some sections of the ordinance that are not currently aligned as to whether or not you can have liquor, particularly in public parks. And so that was the purpose of bringing this forward, was to consider whether the board would like to modify that or leave the current ordinances as it stands. We would be glad to present a brief slide presentation today if there are questions from the board, or if you'd like for us to save that until tomorrow, we would be happy to do so. Otherwise, you have the red line version of the amendments in your packet, and I would be happy to answer any other questions you have at this time. Again, nothing has changed from when we first presented October 31st. And again, thank you to Lisa Watson for taking care of the advertising of this item. This will require a public hearing before changing the code.
Thank you so much, Manager Duncan. Certainly we can hold a presentation, certainly the board's will, to tomorrow, so the citizens, because that's who you'll be presenting the public hearing to. Any questions for Allison Duncan, our Manager of Planning and Zoning Board? All right, we look forward to the, okay, Commissioner Mitchell. Okay,
Yeah, just one quick question. So I'm correct. I don't know if this is for Allison or for the staff. The adjustment is in reference to not just beer and wine. It's in the changes in more in surrounding liquor. Am I correct in that, Allison?
Yes, sir. Currently, we do allow for temporary alcohol permits, and you can
Correct.
pull a temporary alcohol permit for beer, wine, and liquor. That is allowed. What we don't allow is for liquor specifically in parks. So that is one thing that we are bringing forward for your consideration, is whether or not you would like to allow a change that would allow liquor in addition to beer and wine to be served under temporary event permit at a special event in parks. And then we've made some other small suggested amendments to the code. Specifically right now, we cap the number of temporary alcohol permits that any one applicant can pull per year at 4. The state actually caps it at 6. So we have addressed a process through which, they could come through appeal through special use permit to the board for some additional temporary alcohol permits, and made other minor suggested amendments to the fee schedule, if you're so inclined to approve that.
Right, I understood. And I guess I was only going back to the reading of what Madam Chair read, and I don't have it in front of me. I apologize. But it doesn't state that. It just talks about spirit, beer and wine, or beer and wine and spirit, something like that. Should liquor be in that whole conversation as to where we're going potentially with this, or should that be? It's kind of sort of, to me, it was kind of sort of not misleading, but misleading to that degree of what we just read. Not what you're doing, though. What you guys are doing is absolutely correct. I'm only going by what we just read, because I didn't hear anything that referenced that we're taking up this matter that will be surrounding liquor. So
sure, understand. Your concern is the language on the agenda item.
Yes, that's correct. So the general public won't get confused that we already have what I call beer and wine, and we're only speaking of parks and rec, or in our buildings, county buildings. It's the liquor side of it where we have the problem, or we're trying to adjust. Am I correct?
Sure. So I guess is your concern that the word spirits was used instead of liquor?
Right.
Okay. Because it does address, public buildings and parks. And I would have to maybe defer to Lisa and Sherry. I don't know if spirits is the language in the code as opposed to liquor. Sherry or Lisa, do you remember? I would have to just double check that.
Yeah, this is Lisa. Yeah, that's what's stated in the code. So that's what I put in the ad. That's how it's stated, is spirits.
Does that answer your question, Commissioner Mitchell?
I get it, but I just think I know what's potentially that's about to happen, versus are we confusing the general public about saying spirits versus it's about the decision we're getting ready to either adjust will be dealing with the idea of possibly liquor or liquor inside of the county buildings as a permit, so a special permit, and or in our parks and recreation, in our parks. Am I correct? That's kind of what this conversation is all about. Am I correct?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So okay. All right. It's just the language,
Sure.
And I get it, it's in our codes, but it's kind of sort of hidden or embedded in our codes to to a small degree of whether or not we will allow it is going to be the question that we'll determine tomorrow.
Understood. And again, if the board feels that we need to, re-advertise or in any way change the language, I would certainly want to confer with Attorney Coleman and make sure that he was okay with that. But I don't know that we are trying to rush this in any way or in any way, would want to deceive the public. I understand that spirits does seem like a bit of an old-fashioned, maybe technical word. I couldn't provide you any logical explanation about why that was used in our code.
Right.
But we'll certainly, we'll follow the will of the board, and we'll take this up as you would like to take it at your direction. So.
Right. Understood. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
And I'll yield at that point. Madam Chair, I'll yield.
Okay, thank you so much, Commissioner Mitchell. P&Z Manager, I have a question for you regarding, you said this is for special events only, correct?
That's correct. Yes, ma'am. We are looking only at the regulation of temporary alcohol permits, and temporary alcohol permits must have a special event permit that has been approved by the county prior to being able to issue a temporary alcohol permit. Yes, ma'am.
Oh, okay. That was my question for you. Any other remarks, board, or questions?
Yes, Madam
Oh, okay, Vice Chair.
Yeah, no. This is not a difficult consideration of the board. I'll wait for the public hearing to hear what this is. Duly noted on commentary around the definition of words. And it's a point I've been driving for the past year about unaligned policy. We say one thing over here, and we say another thing over here. And this goes back to my point about legal, which is where's my alignment? And every now and then you have to take up matters that are the local law, which is when you have voids or deficiencies in it. There's a conflict here. It's not about the enablement of beer, wine, spirits, or alcohol in the county. It was passed by referendum. Period. It's already here. Second point of that, we're talking about special events, which we already allow. Special permit for alcohol and special events. It already exists. Now the question simply comes down, do we allow it in our facilities, specifically our public facilities, specifically our parks and its associated or other public venues? Right? So the question becomes if, and this is where I want to get to, and I asked this question, I don't want to belabor this today, I want it tomorrow in front of the public. When the public voted, who made the decision to not put everything in there to align? So, County Clerk, you were supposed to go and find me all things associated with our decisions over 30 years regarding alcohol. I know you're out of town. I'm very clear on what I'm asking. Follow our ordinance. If the public voted for something, I want to know that date and what happened. I want to know the policies that when we put these special use permits in to allow alcohol, these special, I want to know when that decision was made and how that went down. And then finally, who, again, one more time, conveniently left out Parks and Rec. We allowed beer and wine, which wasn't before, but the public said all three, but some kind of way, alcohol or spirits was left out of, like, well, who made that decision? Who chose to not follow the will of the public? Who put that prohibition? Who put that condition? I want to stay right there. And so that's what this is going to be about tomorrow. The rest is up to the board, whatever they want to choose to. That's my point. And you guys owe us that information. We don't need to speculate about what happened. I want to know how we got here, that this is even unaligned. Because this is my point, that as we go forward, we have to think that there are other related matters. Commissioner Mitchell was one of the best ones at it. I give him when we dealt with, we went to the state. We had to change some things dealing with blight. And it's the impact. If I change this impacts everything else. And he was masterful at it. Federal, state, and local. He lined that thing up. It's the same principle. If something happens, it impacts other areas. It's a ripple effect. So we need those lawyers and those, we're like, all right, guys, and our clerks, look across now, how does this impact? And I mean, this is more of a going forward, but that's all I'm looking for tomorrow. So county clerk, I know you got it, I know you're on vacation, but we can, I expect to get all that hopefully by tomorrow. Again, my full peers need to get the same information. I'm always about that. I don't use information with power. Make sure they get, when you find it, when you get results of all of those decisions, please share it with the full board. That's all I need to make a comment, Madam Chair. I'll wait for tomorrow's public hearing. I yield back. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Chair. If there are no further comments, we're going to move on to our county administrative business, tab number 8. And thank you so much, Allison Dawkins, E&Z manager. We're going to move to tab number 8, which is approval of the renewal contract with Atlas to provide continued SPLOS project management team services for the total fee amount of $823,756.80 to be funded through the 2016 SPLOS funds, and authorize the chairman to sign all related documents pending final legal review. Deputy County Administrator Perry, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Board of Commissioners. Hopefully everybody is doing well. This is just a renewal of the current contract that we have with Atlas. Currently, the agreement that we're currently under will end on December 31st of 2012. And as you know, collections for our current SPLOS will end on April 1st of 2023. So we are wanting to extend, or Atlas is wanting to extend their project management services for SPLOS projects for the county from January 1 of 2023 through April 1st of 2023. I believe Terry Gable or Russell Small are on the line to provide additional comments.
Yeah, Fred, good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. But yes, I'm here, and Russell is here also, Mr. Perry.
Yeah, so the total being of that from January to April would be $823,756.80. And we'll be glad to take any questions or comments you have at this time.
Thank you, Ray. Can I'll make a correction right
Yes,
quick
sir.
with that?
Uh-huh.
So that so the total amount that you just read does cover that period from January through March, which is you will continue to take collections from the 2016 SPLOS, but it also includes management services from April through the remaining portion of 2023, which based on current collections, and we can get into that more, and also on the number of projects that we're still going to have remaining, obviously from the 2016 SPLOS program, to continue to manage those projects.
Thank you for that, Terry.
Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. All right, Vice Chair, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Chair, because that's about where I was about to go to. I understand this SPLOS from a revenue generation funding mechanism that we're so grateful that we got in 16 and we re-upped again last month. It heads in season for collections of revenue, which ends, but the collection of revenue is not is a top level, but there's still work. You collected the revenue, pay attention. It's sitting there, but you've got work that got finished. Right? You got work that revenue is sufficiently to take care of those projects that will go beyond April 1st. So here's the magic question. So based on the books, and we've talked about this, and I'm not going to make this about future per se. You got to separate 2020 going forward versus current contract that we know that life just doesn't end automatically on April 1st. You have a work product, a set of projects that are above the line, that are lit, loaded, and have gas that need to be delivered. They will go beyond April 1st and perhaps beyond 12/31/2023. Does this contract take us to 2023, and how much of the work will be done by 2023? I just want to stay there, contract 1 year at a time. Can you help me with that, sir?
Yes, sir. So the proposed amount that Ms. Perry just read will take us through December of 2023. It will, based on project schedules, we hope to have all the original projects completed this year in 2023. And then, but as you said, Commissioner Robinson, I think there's probably going to be some projects that are going to go into 2024.
Correct. I just want to mark that for the official record that we may have to revisit this. And this is the function of you can't turn a cake up about when you think it's going to bake. It's going to take what it's going to take, and it doesn't need to compromise the quality of the deliverables you guys have done so far. So there's the chance that this could go over into 2024. However, there should be sufficient revenue to cover those things. Is that accurate? Yes or no?
Yes.
No, I'm fine with what I'm looking at. I just wanted to make those comments just for clarity. Madam Chair, I yield the floor.
Thank you so much. Commissioner Guider.
Yes, thank you. Is Attorney Coleman on the line?
Attorney Coleman.
I am on the line.
Yes. I haven't read the contract, but it seems like the contract should have been written to the effect that they would oversee the projects until all the 2016 SPLOSH funds was used or spent, I guess you'd say. It shouldn't have said above the line or under the line, whatever. Have you looked at the contract?
I have not reviewed that contract. I'm happy to do so for tomorrow.
Okay, because when you do a contract and you're doing it for a specific project, which was the 2016 SPLOSH, I don't think it had all the details that we're talking about here today. So I would like to review it and make sure that it included any extra funds, any below the line projects or whatever, but it doesn't seem like it would just stop at a certain line unless it had a date of the contract running out, April, whatever, 2023. So I would like for you to review that contract. It just doesn't seem logical to me.
I will take a look at it and be able to report on it tomorrow.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're back.
All right, thank you.
Madam Chair?
Vice Chairman.
Yeah, I'm concerned that legal had looked at it. This is a $140 million contract. Our program managers make 4 points off the top. They get paid first before all subcontractors thereof are below. Let's make sure I know what y'all looking at. For program management oversight, 4 points off the top for all cash generated. Implied in that is that, well, okay, however long that $100-something million take us, there is oversight. This is not hard. This is pretty straightforward. All right, so the point is, to Madam Guiders, I'm with her 100%. Like, not get the annual contract. I know we're trying to align. What time align our contracts on calendar year versus this? What on the bridge? Can't worry about it. Y'all gonna fix that going forward. I mean, I'm driving home the point. Like, you see that? See what we're dealing with? All right, now clean that up going forward. That's more of that's administrative. But my point is, please don't confuse that all of a sudden it stops. We've already collected the revenue. Revenue stops, but we're full. So that whatever that it stops collecting. That's about taxing the people. That's over. But you got cash that will last you almost a year to 2 years beyond that you haven't delivered. So they should get paid. They should oversee until it's completed. But to Madam Guy's point, make that clear. One is not associated with the other. The law says, state law, it turns off on 3/31. Got it. Independent of whether or not we re-upped or not. That's over. But you sitting on cash. So they don't walk away just because, but that means they didn't get paid. They get paid on the cash. If we would allow them to okay, well, since the state law says it ended, one is not related to the other. The taxation goes with April 31st. It's over. You can't tax anymore on that. Whatever you got. You guys were sitting on all this cash that's come in above and beyond the line from a revenue perspective, and we got a pipeline of projects that allowed us to go get that extends beyond our forecast 5 years ago into the future. Make sure that's considered. In other words, well, it's already funded now. How you want to make the legal wrapper work? So I'm standing with Madam Guy. Make the legal words work. Line that up now. So we're not coming back every time trying to reconsider what, like, it's almost like we're sort of tiptoeing around it. No. You got that body of work that needs to be delivered. You have a program manager responsible for it. So there shouldn't be an issue. Just make sure that's cleaned up. And so I yield, Madam Chair. I made my point.
Okay. If there are no further comments, board, we're going to move on to the next item. Tab number 9 is proposed sale of a strip of land pursuant to OCGA 36-93, private sale. Deputy County Administrator Perry, you have the floor.
Yes, Madam Chair. I'll ask our county attorney to cover this item.
Madam Chair, members of the commission, this matter is related to action that this board was asked to take several weeks ago to help facilitate a development in the city of Douglas pertaining to a small and narrow strip of land that would be cut off and not ingress and egress as a result of this development. And we were asked to sign a letter that said we did not object to the to being cut off, to that particular strip of land being landlocked. I think Director Worthington at the time discussed that it was not really usable, and we didn't even realize we had it. So I think that based upon that, we approved the letter saying we didn't mind it being cut off. We now have received a request that they be allowed to buy that strip of land. And I think in the letter, by the way, is a condition to us signing that letter. It was requested that the concern was raised that leaving it landlocked would reduce the value of it. And as a result of that, we got a letter from the developer which basically said that if that property is ever sold, the developer would buy it. Therefore, we had to buy it. We buy it at the appraised value. So therefore, we had a buyer, and if it should be sold, we were protected in that respect. But now the request is that I think the city has now required the developer to actually buy. There is a requirement, and I think there are certain deadlines that the developer has in terms of its financing to make the project work. The code generally provides that any sale of land by the county has to be done by public auction. However, there is a subsection that allows a sale by private sale to abutting landowners, assuming certain conditions are met, including that the land is so small and narrow so as not to be usable for any other purpose, including that it the purchaser is an abutting property owner. Another factor would be that it would be the abutting property owner's use of his property. So those are some of the factors that allows this private sale. And I think the request is that we, as the county, agree to the sale. The developer is represented by Joe Fowler, who I see is here at the meeting, and I would ask Joe to talk to us more about this and explain the basis of the request a little bit more.
Morning, everybody. Thank you very much for making that real clear. The county was incredibly gracious to us about 6 weeks ago when it became clear to us that the development of the senior housing project on Chicago Avenue, adjacent to Golden United Methodist Church, we could not go forward because there is an unopened road known as Van Zant Mill Road. Members of the board and others may remember this. You were kind enough to write a letter on October the 4th that even though the county owned a small strip of 1.1 acres that would be landlocked by Van Zant Mill Road if the city allows the project to go forward, it would basically mean that Van Zant Mill Road would go away entirely. By the way, that road has never been built. It appears that it first was shown on the county's tax plat in the 60s. What happened was sometime ages ago, and I mean ages ago, as far back as the earliest part of the 20th century, there were lots 5 through 13 subdivided adjacent to the back of Golden United Methodist Church. Lot number 12 was foreclosed by the county for taxes in 1928. It's bounded on the north by lots 5 through 11 that are owned by the church, on the south by lot 12 that will be acquired by the developer of this apartment complex. And then on the west side of all of those lots is this unopened road. We realized there was a problem when the city staff said we could not go forward with the project because all of those lots 5 through 13 were going to be landlocked. Well, the church owns 5 through 11 and they're going to merge that into their larger 26-acre parcel. The BOC Group is acquiring lot 13, and that left the outlier of the county's little 1-acre parcel. And the county considered this at a work session, I think on October the 3rd, but signed a letter after a formal resolution was adopted on October the 4th. That was initially the recommendation of one of the city attorneys, but when it went back to the staff and the staff attorney, they said that the ordinance would not allow the letter alone to do. And so now we're in the position where we actually need to acquire that lot number 12. When we sent the letter of the request back before October the 4th, we had it appraised, and even though it was landlocked, it was appraised at $3,000. The code section that Mr. Coleman mentioned says that you can sell at private sale certain property. I know that's not what typically happens, but it says if it's a small or narrow strip of land, then it would qualify. And if also the parcel is so shaped or small that it is incapable of being used independently as zoned, then the normal requirement for the public sale can be disregarded. Now, in this case, we've got a 1.1 acre parcel that's surrounded entirely on the left by the Chicago Park subdivision, on the east and north by the church, and on the south by this proposed apartment complex. So even though it's unusual, it appears we would respectfully submit that the county would be legally authorized to go forward. We sent a letter that described all of this to Mr. Coleman, and I believe he's routed around to the other parties on the staff that will need to look at it. We've been assisted through all of this by Mr. Westbrook, for which we are grateful. So where we are right now is at the situation where we are asking the county at your meeting tomorrow to approve the sale at private sale. It's not a situation where we are standing on that appraisal of $3,000. It is assessed for $9,000, but we have the current appraisal for $3,000. And my client, which is the BOC Group, respectfully requests the board to do that. You've previously authorized by your approval of the TEFRA request about 6 weeks ago. You were aware of the project and may remember where we currently stand with respect to all this. So, Madam Chair, Mr. Coleman and others, that's the request. We would be grateful for your favorable consideration. There are a number of representatives of the BOC Group on the line if you would like to hear from any of them about where the project currently stands. Thank you, Madam Chair and others.
Thank you so much, Attorney Fowler. I certainly would love to hear from the Denmark group just to give us an idea of where this project stands. If you could just turn your cameras on, and who are I need your names, please. Raven Thompson. Hello, how are you?
Great. Good morning. Yes.
Good morning.
So basically, as it relates to the historic Crystal Lake project, we were scheduled to try to close this project on September the 30th, but because of the landlocking issue, our project was delayed as it related to the review of our LDP documents or permit application, as well as our building permit applications. Mm-hmm. And so, as Joe briefly described to you all, this is where we are at this point, trying to resolve the acquisition of parcel 12 so that we can get our plat approval from the City of Douglasville Development Department and go ahead and get our comments back. Sorry about that. Get our comments back from the city for our LDP because we need those to close this deal. We received an extension from our landowners to give us till November 30th. And so we ended up having to go back to work out with them for another extension. So we're pushing to stay on target to try to close this deal in December. There are external factors that affect our deal as it relates to inflation with construction materials, as well as with the Treasury Department's raising interest rates. And so the longer our deal is prolonged, then we can blow through our funding cap, which is something that we're trying not to do. In addition to, we already have everything lined up so far as all our financing from the lender, as well as our other soft financing debt. And so we really, 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 really are on a critical path that we need to get this deal closed. And we do, again, have our letter of determination from Georgia Department of Community Affairs, which will give us our 4% tax exempt bonds as well as credits. And Joe, I think we were scheduled to get our bonds validated this month here.
Tomorrow morning.
Okay.
Yes, tomorrow morning. The city requires an answer from us on our plat on December the 15th, Madam Chair and others. Okay. So we greatly appreciate Mr. Coleman's assistance in trying to help us negotiate all of these twists and turns.
Okay. Thank you so much, Attorney Fowler, and thank you so much, Mrs. Thompson, for bringing this information to us. We can certainly hear the conviction on your behalf, Ms. Thompson, and certainly this is something that I would greatly appreciate, and I'm very optimistic that our board will take up tomorrow. It is on the agenda, so that is something that will come before the Board of Commissioners tomorrow. Any questions, board? Vice Chairman, I see your hand maybe up. You okay? Anybody else?
Yeah.
Okay, you're Vice Chair. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. So again, we're being sold the land. Is that what we're selling the land to them?
That's just on the agenda. That's the request. Yes.
And Joe, Madam Chair. Joe.
Yes, sir.
All right. So one more time, we're selling. Who's buying the land?
It's going to be acquired by the developer of the apartment complex, Commissioner. It's 1.1 acres. It's just sort of holding the world together.
Got it.
County's 1928.
No, I get it. And it's on our rolls since 1960. And so the second question is, what's the total amount of the project? Total cost? Total financing?
The total financing of the project, total development cost of the project right now, as it stands, we're at about $40 million.
So 40 million. And how many housing units?
It will be a 165 independent senior living units, and it will be a 3-story project.
And we did talk about this a month or so ago, so I do remember it now. And so I appreciate what I'm listening to. And housing is important to me personally, but it's important for the community as well, whether it's senior housing or just housing in general, especially when it comes down to financing. And it sounds like you're listening us from a financing perspective as a participant. It's just a matter of selling some land that's on our books that we really have no future value for, in essence. So I wouldn't want my vote to be an hindrance to that. So I have no objections to this at this point. While I'll wait for tomorrow. Madam Chair, I yield. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments before we move on? All right, thank you again, Attorney
Yes,
Fowler.
Madam Chair.
Okay, Commissioner Mitchell.
Yes. So thank you. So Joe, just one quick question. So that appraisal that you did, was that based off the easement that we allowed, or that just kind of how did the appraisal? I mean, I'm glad that it's done. That way we kind of move this project hopefully, forward. But what is it based off of? Because you said $9,000 on the assessed value, and then you said the appraised value that came through from your behalf was, I think you said 3 or something of that caliber. Help me understand the disparity. You're on mute though, Joe. You're on mute.
Sorry.
There you go.
Apologize. I had asked a local appraiser to look at the property based on sales, and he did so, and he came up with $3,000. I provided a copy of it to Mr. Coleman, but I'll be more than glad to send a copy around to everybody. He based it on comparable sales.
Yeah, okay. And it just seems that's just such a unique disparity. I thought it would have been the opposite with the assessed value versus the actual appraised value of that.
Yeah, that sometimes is the case, but in this instance, it was not.
Okay. Legal, Michael. With that, do we have to do? And I'm glad that we figured out a way to kind of move this project forward. So, the Thompson you got, I mean, I think this commission is definitely in support of the project, and we want to say we appreciate what we're kind of going with this. But Michael, so with that disparity, or do we need to do our own appraisal? Not that I'm trying to look for any more or less, but would their appraisal be okay to use to kind of move this project forward, or do we need to do something different?
Well, I think it's an interesting question about the discrepancy between the appraised value and the assessed value. Mm-hmm. And I would have to think about whether or not. I mean, the key is trying to get the fair market value, and I guess that's what the appraisal would show. I think if we think that there's a higher value, I mean, the problem with having another appraisal done, I'm not sure there's enough time to do that and meet the deadlines in the deal. If we wanted to cut some price higher than the appraised value, I think that's something that the city, the county negotiate, which could be done quicker than having an appraisal done, I would suspect. I know in the letter signed by the Benoit Group, they indicated they would purchase it at the appraised value if sold. But we're at a kind of a different place, and whether or not they would go higher than the appraised value, particularly given the discrepancy with the assessed value, is something that may be subject to discussion. I have not broached that discussion, but we certainly, maybe through Mr. Worthington or others, have that conversation if that's something you would like to pursue. So I think, to the extent the appraisal is totally independent and is supposed to reflect fair market value, and if the county is getting fair market value, it's probably safe to do it. But I would be, I'd want to, know a little bit more about the discrepancy with the assessed value.
Yeah, and that's the only concern, as you can probably hear, Joe. That's the only concern I just kind of hear here is that discrepancy is so far apart. But I thought it would have been in the reverse, more than anything. But I don't know. I don't know kind of how Joe, you and or your client, Ms. Thompson, kind of feel about that, though. Kind of what do we do here to kind of keep this project moving forward? What's your, and I don't want to put us all on the spot. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, Commissioner, that's the critical piece for us. The difference between $3,000 and $9,000 is both significant and insignificant given the time constraints When we asked for the appraisal, it was before we realized that the county was going to require that it be purchased. And it was not a situation where I called and said, hey, can you give us a lowball number? I just asked for an appraisal that came back. Somebody mentioned that it was landlocked. I asked that it could well, because it's on a public road, it could well have public access at some point. And I asked him to look at it differently, and he came back with $3,000. If, Commissioner, you think it's important that maybe Mr. Perry and I get together and hand out, drive down, come up with, I should say, a number, we can do that. The most important thing for us is that we have a decision tomorrow.
Understood. And I understand though, so I guess I should also ask Ms. Thompson, is that something that you think you guys will be willing to entertain?
Yes.
Oh, that was a firm yes. Okay, so Joe, I would suggest to this board that we do that and let legal and you guys kind of work out the difference and tell us what that is on tomorrow, so we can kind of move forward, you know, versus going out to get another, and only because I want to make sure that we're doing right by the citizens of Douglas County, not by the actual, I'm overly concerned about the actual number, but that disparity just looks too far off from the appraisal value versus the assessed value. So
That's understandable.
Pardon me, Reggie.
Go ahead, Joe.
Mr. Commissioner, I'll get with Frederick as soon as the meeting is over, and we'll come to terms, and that'll be communicated to the board.
Yeah, and I would also suggest that you definitely keep and make sure legal is a part of that whole conversation and tell us kind of where we are. I don't think this board is, we understand that the importance of the project, but we want to be fair to the citizens of Douglas County, you know, first and foremost, you know, by dealing with their financial, well, with their properties that they pretty much own. So with that, I'm okay with moving forward, but I just want to make sure that we're being right by the citizens versus just trying to. If that disparity wasn't so great, I would have been like, oh, move forward and call it a day. But it just seems something that didn't come all together in my head, in my math. So if we would do that much, and Madam Chair, if you allow them to do that much to at least, you know, kind of have some conversations with Fred, with Michael, and Joe, and Ms. Thompson, and tell us kind of what that is, and share it with this board, even hopefully today, that we'll know what we're dealing with first thing tomorrow. And I'm hoping that we'll move forward, but I can't guarantee that. I'm just like Vice Chairman. I want to get this thing and keep it moving because we gave you guys the access value. I mean, not the assessed value. We gave you guys the easement. And I'm hoping that didn't cause the devaluation of this particular piece of land. So that's why I kind of question it now. Is it based off of what? So, okay. But that would be my suggestion, that we do that much at least, so we can at least feel like we did right by the citizens versus a public sale and or private sale.
So if Mr. Mitchell, if I may interject, I just want to add that this parcel, when we did our environmental phase 1 for these particular parcels, because these parcels were the initial site that we were going to build our project on, there is a water feature that runs up directly through the middle of all of these parcels, 5 through 13. And so based off of all the buffers that we've encountered so far as city, state, and county, which equates to about a 75-foot buffer where you cannot disturb that land, it really renders that parcel useless. You can't build on it.
Right, and I think we kind of established that when we had this conversation a month or so ago.
Yes, sir.
Again, I'm not questioning the project. It's just that the numbers just didn't kind of quite add up. But I want to make sure that whatever the numbers are, that we did right by the citizens in doing whatever the numbers are. That's all.
Absolutely.
Okay, so, but I think I'm confident that Joe and Michael and Fred can send something back to this board saying, here's kind of where we are. But I would just like to see that kind of worked out prior, hopefully today, and come tomorrow, it'll be a no-brainer. So, okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank
Thank you.
Madam Chair, we'll be back in touch. Frederick, I'll get with you after the meeting.
Okay. And Madam Chair, I'll yield.
Oh, thank you so much, Commissioner Mitchell. All right, thank you, Attorney Fowler, thank you, Mrs. Thompson. And I know that our staff, our attorney, our county attorney, and our deputy county administrator will get with you all to crunch some numbers, and then we'll and hope that information will come before the board tomorrow. But if you could just share it with us in advance.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right, thank you. We're going to move on to our next item. If there are no further comments. Board, we have one additional item that needs to come. It's rather time sensitive, and I've added, and it is considered a tab 9A. And Lisa, certainly you can change it on the agenda tomorrow. Is Georgia County Internship Program for 2023, and certainly wanted our Deputy County Administrator to explain this to the Board of Commissioners. It's very time sensitive.
Yes, yes, Madam.
For tomorrow.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for adding this item for us. This is the Georgia County Internship Program grant application. We apply for this program annually. It is very valuable for to the county. This grant provides internships throughout the county, Parks and Rec, Human Resources, Risk and Safety, so on and so forth. There is a application that we submit to ACCG. And what I'll do, I'll ask Director Carter to provide some more details for us. But this is something that we've been involved in for quite some time now. So the grant application is due on the 2nd of December. So we wanted to put this here on the agenda so that we can move forward with it in a timely fashion. I see Director Carter there.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Chair, Vice Chair, and Commissioners. Thank you so much for this addition. We just have two authorizations we'd like to request. One would be the ability for Human Resources to apply for this grant. The total grant is about $2,400, 200 hours at $12 per hour for an intern. Our ask is that we have someone to work with us on a SharePoint site, which will serve similar to an intranet. We have Office 365 currently, and so we would like to have a place where our employees can go and seek resources, job descriptions, pay schedules, some of the forms that we use in Human Resources in a one dedicated place. And so we are asking that we can apply to have an intern assigned to this project. And if so, hopefully that will get started next year. That's one of the projects. The second project is actually from Planning and Zoning. And I believe Allison is on the call.
Hey there.
Yes, Allison can explain a little bit about that one. So we're asking for authorizations to apply for these two internship opportunities. Allison, can you explain?
Yeah, sure thing. So we put in a request basically just to have an intern that would help support the work of the Planning and Zoning Department. We have developed, 4 projects, but we certainly want to, tailor their interest, to what would work best with the prospective, candidate. So we've developed projects that would focus on economic and workforce development, on green space and trails planning, on arts and creative placemaking planning, and then to support the ongoing housing inventory that we've been working on for the county. So we have asked for some support in those 4 areas. Certainly, if we had somebody who wanted to take on a deep dive in one of those areas, we would support that. If they wanted to do a little bit in all of those areas to get broad exposure to all of the work of the Planning and Zoning Department, we would support them in that also. But we would be looking for someone who could come in and develop a substantial, body of policy work and help advance our work in all 4 of those areas moving forward.
Thank you, Allison. We will take any questions you may have at this time.
Thank you so much. Board of Commissioners, do you have any questions?
Sure.
Okay, Vice Chair.
No, I have no problem supporting the use of interns. I mean, interns are important. Obviously, tools for us to get some very very good resources, and obviously it's mutual exchange. They get great experience and exposure. I want to talk about the first one, which is SharePoint, which is dealing with just HR, or it wasn't just HR, but it sounds like we want to start there. And I'm going to yield to my colleague, maybe Commissioner Carson, from a technological perspective. But because we got SharePoint, we got an intranet, but I got a website. And I've got a website that we're supposed to be self-managing. Does this ultimately lead us toward a webmaster in your mind as an HR director? Help me translate where this could go. I get what an intern. It's for a season. It's a quick assignment. I get it. But does that, as opposed to just a duty as assigned, they can put on their resume, is this something I can extend to a future competence and capacity within the county to manage stuff internally? Yes,
absolutely. So we had to specify a specific project that the intern could work on. And so this project was one that could be reasonably done in a 10 to 12 week period, which is the internship opportunity. We would, however, like to expand it to our website if possible, because our website could use a little sprucing up as well as it relates to the HR website. But the intranet is really for our internal employees, just to increase efficiency. Right now, if someone wanted, for instance, a job description, they would actually have to email us, and then we would have to search for the job description and send it to them. So that would kind of cut out that step and give people access to the things, our employees access to the things they may need. We would, however, like to expand that to our website that is used for our external customers as well. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I get that. I used to do this when I was younger, so I know just enough. There's a difference between the internet and obviously the internet or extranet. I get it. It's portal, right? And how you manage your information, whether, we have servers, but I look at how we have everything just on server net, but there's no user interface. There's no ease of use, and it's all over the place. And I'm just hopeful, I'm encouraged that we can get some intern at least give us a foundation, a spark that will lead to a much better way of how we access information. A lot of times we can do self-empowerment, but we don't know where to go. I shouldn't have to call for the county clerk to get basic information. I should be able to just go out there and search it myself. No more than a law library, no more than any other major consulting firm that knows how to go get access to data, information that's historical projects. So some of this, I think it'll make us much more efficient, because sometimes we got to wait on somebody. Like, why do I have to wait? We can find everything else on the internet at a drop of a dime, but yet when we try to find stuff that we really need to get some work done, it should not have to be dependent upon a daisy chain of sending information over through emails. So I'm hopeful. I mean, this got my attention, not to belabor the moment. I have no problem with the intern, but the fact that, okay, let's make sure we line this up, that there's some extendable value that can come out of this seed that's being planted in this person's life who's going to join us. So, all right, I'm sure I made my comment. Thank you. I'm good.
Thank you so much, Vice Chair. All right. There are no further comments. We're going to move on to our next item, which is business. The next tab is under business items, which is tab number 10, approval of the amendment to the procurement policy and procedures manual as part of the 2022 Optimization Act pending final legal review. And this was tabled Board of Commissioners from our November 15th, 2022 meeting. Director Amons, if you could just give us a quick refresher. We've already had discussion regarding this policy, but certainly it was tabled. So are you on the line, Director Amons?
Yes. Good morning. Just to bring to the board's a memory, there were 3 sections I'm proposing for the procurement manual. The first one addressed outside counsel, and the second to address communications with staff and communications with vendors during an open solicitation.
Thank you. Board, any questions regarding these
Yes.
policies? Yeah. Vice Chair, you have the floor.
Yeah, just one that we can wait till tomorrow, but I just want to make for the record, whether with the legal ear listening, when we talk about solicitation, I get your point, which was basically no talking. Don't approach the commissioners. You vendors that are listening, we're putting formal rules in place. No. Let's keep this real. And I appreciate her bringing this forward. But that's less about that point, which is about solicitation. And in this, is there a placeholder that sets expectations of other elected officials and specifically constitutional officers regarding solicitation. No bids. Let me be clear. In other words, we have a procurement process that must be adhered to. There's some belief that constitutionally they can do it their own way. And there's a debate. And I'd love to have this conversation tomorrow with my peers. Let me be clear. Like federal grants, like state, like Congress, you got to follow our process. We will run it for you, or you will adhere to this. But when, for this money, for this appropriation, you just can't have something that's not the same standard. This gives an opportunity. I'm hoping that this is, I'm looking for language. Let's see what I'm going to propose, and if it's not already in there. Let's be clear now. You can't have a $2 million contract. Okay, now how did you get there? How did you pick that person? Either we facilitated through procurement, or in fact they have the power to be able to do that. But still, it has to be the same standard. Where's your technical review evaluation? Who was on the team? How did that go down? Because we take hits for stuff that they believe they got power, but they don't have to have a standard. Either we do it, or they do it, but it's held to the same standard. So is that language in there any kind of way?
The amendment, it will be addressed tomorrow. I will present it to the board. It's not finalized with legal.
All right, but you're working it.
Yes.
All right, I just put a record. I'm glad you heard me along the way. I just had to reemphasize for this moment, like I'm not playing with this. Everybody got to go together. If we're held to the same standard, it's everybody. All right, I'm good. Thank you, Madam Procurement. Madam Chair, I'm good. Thank you. I yield.
Okay. There are no further comments regarding tab number 10. We'll move on to tab number 11. You still have the floor, Latanya Amons, Director. Let me read it. Tab number 11 is approval of a CB-100 procurement P card policy as part of the 2022 Optimization Act pending final review. And this also was tabled from November 15th legislative meeting board. Director Amons, you have the floor.
Madam Chair, Board of Commissioners, and the public, as a refresher, the county has begun to use procurement cards or P cards. And so I am proposing and seeking approval for a countywide P card policy. And that will govern how the card is to be used and the purposes for using the card. And I'm seeking approvals to the county for a countywide policy.
Any questions, board? Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Director Amons. We're going to move on to tab number 12, which is approval of the CB-60 finance policy as part of the 2022 Optimization Act pending final legal review. And this also was tabled from the October 15th legislative meeting. Madam CFO Bivens, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning again, Madam Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, Commissioners, and citizens and colleagues. So CB-60 had 5 separate areas for the board to consider approving. We had some discussions around one area last work session. We did one of these policies, CB-60-1.4, which is our travel policy, was approved by the Board of Commissioners during their regular business meeting held on November the 1st. The one thing that was in question was CB-60-1, which was an amendment to the fiscal policy regarding budget revenue anticipations. And this is what I kind of spoke to earlier during the preliminary public hearing budget presentation. So on this one, I myself also had spoken with the county's chief financial advisor, Mr. Corbin, and we both agreed that the existing financial policy that was developed by Mr. Corbin and the board subsequently adopted, it already reflects the actual collection rate of the prior year property taxes, as the policy states that budget revenue anticipations for the county shall not exceed 100% of the normal recurring revenue collected during the previous fiscal year. So by default, the collection rate is already included in that figure. Also in that policy, it states that there's a provision to capture additional revenue anticipations from any tax increase in the tax rate when the BOC elects not to roll back the millage rate in any particular year. So as you recall, the board did not go with the rollback rate. So that additional tax revenue has been captured as a recurring tax revenue for 2022 and has been included in the next year's budget. So based on that conversation, I'm recommending maintaining the existing policy because, as I stated previously, the collection rate is already reflected in the revenue profile. And the policy also has provisions allowing adjustments to our anticipated revenue resulting from whenever the board elects not to roll back property taxes. So I want to remove CB 60-1 from CB 60. However, we want to approve the remaining three, 1.2, which is developing the reserves to set aside matching funds for capital grants for capital transportation projects, parks and rec replacement equipment, and any other capital projects requiring a match, which is 10%. We're asking to set that at 10% of excess reserves, and then to establish an ERP system study to better align core back office functions in finance, human resources, and procurement, and that's 60-1.3. And then 60-1.5 is, as we discussed, looking at updating the county's car allowance. And that is all the update that I want to provide around. Everything else is the same except for that one. I'm requesting to remove CB 60-1.
Thank you so much. Madam CFO Ford, do you have any comments, remarks,
Madam Chair?
questions? Okay, Vice Chairman, you have the floor.
Yeah, let me pick back up on to your point, the comments during the public hearing. Preliminary public hearing that made earlier about what this was about. And I think sometimes the board are looking at things like the elephant, and everybody's on different sides of the elephant. Looking at a single leg, not necessarily seeing what the other side is looking at. On this one subject regarding collection rate, and you stopped short. I'm glad you didn't go there because I wanted to be able to introduce my point, which is I get reoccurring revenues and expenses. That was the board put in place as a constraint for not having budget presentations by the CFO that is by some multiple. It's got. But in my mind, I think that was an easy way to do it. But I'm gonna let that go because it keeps it simple, lowest denominator. My point was about forecasting. My point was, okay, so here we are about to swallow minimum wage. We're gonna swallow compression. We're talking about 5% plus 10%, and you gotta extend that into the future. I wanted to have that conversation when you're doing sensitivity analysis and you're tweaking variables. Well, what's my multiplier? Prior year, you're looking backwards. Finance looks forward. Two separate things. My point is now, how y'all gonna forecast this? And how we gonna swallow this? And you have to be able to forecast and run a scenario and say, okay, based on certain conditions of collection rate, and you can just make a blanket, but the point is, okay, what is the cost of living? What is the impact? This is about modeling. And my point, when we make decisions that have a 5-year impact, how long is it going to take us to swallow this big giant turkey that we're going to swallow? The past can't help me. It gives you one moment in time to current. Now, how long is it going to take us to eat the rest of this? Yes. That was my point. And here's my point. I've always argued, since I've come in, we've always had a backward-looking finance department. It always told me about the past, always the historical. Like, I need somebody who can forecast the future so we know the impact of decisions that have large-scale impact. So, by collection rate, what's your assumption? All right, so you don't have 100% every time. And only let those who can hear. I'm not debating, I'm not even arguing, I'm not even looking for an alternative position. Because the math doesn't matter, like, okay, this talks about, now how you gonna do this? Now, I can do it myself. My point is when you're presenting to the full board in public, and we're saying we're making these large-scale financial decisions, knowing that you can't eat it, meaning that knowing that you gotta use ARPA money that we've already decided to make the current decision work. It was okay to stick with your policy of reoccurring revenue and reoccurring expenses. The board already made a decision that we're going to use ARPA money, a non-reoccurring, to float a decision that we made. What did y'all get? What was the point from Director Miller? We sat there, we're like, okay, guys, y'all got to forecast this. Give me the 8 years, get the board 10 years. How they gonna eat this? And do they know what the decision made? All right, now, if we do this, it's gonna do just what it just did. It took you to a penny, solid. And you're still doing it with support from ARPA money. We already made that decision. Now you gotta digest it. So one more time, by tomorrow, we can have this conversation offline. I want to forecast it. You know, in other words, how you gonna forecast it? All right, forecast me into the future. You guys did a great job. Terms did a great job of forecasting capital, right? Capital impacts. That their very first assignment when they first came on board, like when me and Mike Mulcair, give us a tool to look at capital. Done. Now we've grown up beyond that. Now I need a tool. I need something to go to forecast into the future. I know you got your new financial analyst. That was my point in the board of commissioners retreat. All right, now I'm fine. But if you cannot forecast, if you cannot provide the board, I shouldn't have to do it with my peers because I'm biased in the sense of how I see the world. I'm not even trying to convince them. The way is like, okay, you see what you see. But my point to Madam Chair, to the administration, guys, y'all got to be able to forecast the future when we're making these long-term decisions. People want salary increases. I mean, we're talking about across the board. Like, you got to simulate that. The past can't help me get you at one moment, but now I got to extend forward. I built upon going forward. I don't have time to teach finance right now. Everybody stay in their lane. But do you hear what I've got to say, Madam CFO? What I'm trying to get at? Do you understand?
Yes, sir, I understand. As we discussed last week, I believe, on what you were looking for, and I gave some recommendations on what I'm looking at on how I can provide that information to you.
Awesome. I had to do that for the record. I know.
Yes, I know.
All right. Madam Chair, I'm good. Thank you, Madam Chair. I yield the floor.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Guider.
Thank you. Director Bivens, part of this financial code revisit, or whatever you want to call it, optimization, is about car allowance. I know you have something in there about car allowance. You're raising it. Is it? Are you equalizing it, or what?
Commissioner Gada, at this time, I don't have a recommendation on the amount. Basically, what it states is that the Board of Commissioners shall approve all car allowances based on job classification and need. That would also include trying to bring everyone in line, because right now they are all over the place. I don't have it with me. I would have to pull it up. I didn't bring it with me. But for instance, I know over in one of the elected officials' offices, we have light positions with car allowances that they vary. They're very different. So there's no continuity there. And we want to look at those to see how we can bring those in line moving forward. I don't think the board, I'm not sure, I can't speak for the board, but I wouldn't think they would change anybody. But moving forward, if that position were to ever become vacant and whoever new fills that role, whatever the board decides that rate should be, that's what it would be moving forward. So it's not a number that I would come up with. I will be working with Deputy County Administrator and Madam ACA, and of course the board members as well, to determine what the board feels is fair and equitable. And also Human Resources Director will be involved in this project.
All right. Is there any mention about take-home cars? Because that's really a car allowance. And there has been a department that has breached this 2 times for 2 different employees. They allowed a take-home car for months, even years, without notifying the finance department about it, not coming before the Board of Commissioners, And so therefore, we have broken the IRS laws by not reporting it, or making them report it on their taxes.
So, Commissioner Goddard, to address your question, the car allowance is separate from a take-home vehicle. The purpose of the car allowance is for those employees who have to use their vehicles for to conduct day-to-day business for the county on behalf of the county, and they don't have a county-issued vehicle or a take-home vehicle. This is to compensate them for the use of their personal vehicle. So the take-home vehicle is a separate issue. It's not tied to. It's not included in the car allowance. So if that's something that you
finance has to be notified of a take-home car, so you can tax that perk.
That is correct. No, that is correct. We should be notified that an individual has a take-home car, and yes, ma'am, we are to tax them on that. So that is correct.
Should it be? What I'm asking is, should it be included in this take-home car thing, or add another paragraph or whatever code section about the take-home cars, because this could get the county in trouble with IRS if this continues to happen.
If that is something that the board would like to have done, certainly at your directive, we can look at looking at whatever policy we have in place. And if we don't have anything, we can develop something along with the county attorney, because we do definitely want some legal advice on that as well. Or we can look at what we have and tweak it, and then put some things in place to make sure that finance is being notified when that is done. So maybe like a form where people sign off on it, and then it comes to the finance department. And we would have to look at it to see where it is now and where you want to go, and then develop a plan.
Well, I had asked Attorney Coleman to look into this because it happened the second time, and the same excuse was used the second time as the first time. I didn't know I had to do it. I had to bring it before the board. So I'm thinking that if we're going to adjust the take-home, the car allowance, we ought to also make sure that it is the policy, the county policy, that any take-home car has to be approved by the Board of Commissioners, and therefore notifying the finance department about the taxation of such.
Yes, ma'am.
So would you, I'm asking you and the county attorney to look at this and maybe bringing this before us at a later time. We just need to make sure we're covering the county, because if anybody gets in trouble, it's going to be us, the county, and we don't need IRS breathing down our backs. Attorney Coleman.
Yes, ma'am.
You did look at this, did you not? Do we have a policy about take home?
I don't know that we have a policy. I did look at the question about the need to put the IRS considerations, and you were correct about that. It is something that would have to be reported, but I don't think we have a policy, and I think I'm happy to work with finance to help develop such a policy to present to the board at a later date.
Okay. If the board agrees with me, if we don't have a policy, we certainly should have a policy, because am I correct saying that the county could get in trouble if we allow take-home cars and we're not reporting it?
I think that's correct. I think we have an obligation to report anything that could be considered income, and the failure to do that could be a problem for us. So we'll look at what we're doing now and making sure we have a policy in place. We're happy to work with finance to do that.
All right. Is it any possibility of having this done at the time we adopt this well, this is coming on the agenda tomorrow. Could it be done as a separate item or what?
I think we could do it as a separate item, just a separate supplemental policy regarding take-home vehicles. We can present it at a later time. I don't know that we can do it tomorrow.
And if the board agrees, I really think it should be the policy that it shall be reported or approved by the Board of Commissioners. That way, once it goes through a public meeting, then finance would be alerted to the fact this person has a take-home car. Am I right in assuming it should be approved by the Board of Commissioners? If a car allowance is approved by the board, I think this should be approved by the board.
Yeah, I think what we would do is want to look at kind of best practices and what kind of is being recommended and required generally, and be happy to present that to you once we've kind of developed something basic on that kind of review. I'm not sure that every take-home car would be necessary to be approved by the board. It could be that we have a policy in place regarding how they are approved, and that policy governs and sets forth standards, conditions, and requirements. And it may be that everyone doesn't have to be approved by the board, but we'd like to kind of look at best practices before making that recommendation. Working with finance.
Well, I'm going to leave it up to you and Director Bivens to come up with something, because I think it's badly needed, because we're putting our necks out there.
Yes, I don't disagree, ma'am.
All right. Well, thank you very much. I yield back, Madam.
Thank you.
Madam Chair?
I was talking to myself. I apologize. But are there any other comments before we move on? Vice Chair, you have the floor. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I appreciate again. I appreciate again every now and then me and Madam got it. We're on the same page, but probably from different perspectives. Which is right now, what's on the table is the car allowances, and take home is a separate but related. But to that point, many people got car allowances. County organically grew through discretionary decision. There was no policy. It was invisible rules. It's whoever you showed favor to, however you chose to do it. And if you just step back and look at this thing is all over the place. And so I appreciate staff, but you're like, look, guys, we know you got to roll up your sleeves. I know. That's why you guys were hired. We got to fix this. Because again, it was allowed. You can't act self-righteous now. You seem like, oh my God, they like, no, look at the whole thing. Everybody. Look at how the county has been decided over time. It's all over the board. You have your eyes closed, your ears closed, you're staying in your little bubbles, and where was the oversight? There's no, you ain't got no policy. You ain't got money. Not get it. Take home. I get car allowances. I get what that means. You take it out your paycheck. What about everybody else? Silence. The whole point is that we got to apply this to everybody. As relates to take home, it's got to apply to public safety. It's got to apply to everybody. I mean, we're about to buy $16 million of cars. I agree with her. Y'all better deal with this. You gonna get everybody a car? Ooh, a brand new Tahoe? 80 grand? What now? What's the impact of that? So I'm with her for a totally different reason, but this spawns, I'm like, yeah, and take that offline, fix that. Right now, we just want to codify the fact that we may have some policy in place, but existing things that were allowed. That's your baseline. You got to at least have some policy. There's no policies. They were all discrete decisions over time. No problem. But then going forward, you got a bigger issue because you got major financial decisions that this board will make. How are y'all gonna do this? And I agree with him, the policy should be done, such that will taking fire or taking the sheriff, for example. You get to make a decision on who gets cost, but there should be a policy that actually drives it that way. It doesn't have to come from us. I agree. I do not want all this, everything doesn't have to come from the board. That's the point of a policy. Adhere to the policy, then it runs itself. So I just wanted to make that statement. I look forward to obviously tomorrow's conversation, but as it relates to separating to the car allowance from the take home, yeah, put some thought into that, but not just for the immediacy of maybe just one area. And you got to look at all things, especially future financial decisions. Well, that's going to be material. County Attorney, did you get my point?
Yes, I do.
Madam Chair, thank you.
Okay. All right. If there are no further comments, we're going to move on to our next item, which is tab number 13. Approval of the policy regarding the engagement of counsel for Douglas County officials as part of the 2022 Optimization Act, pending final legal review, and it was tabled also on November 15th, 2022. Legal Department, I believe we've already discussed it. Do you have any other added comments or remarks?
Nothing added, but happy to respond to any questions.
Okay, thank you. Any questions, board? All right, we're going to move on to tab number 14. Commissioner Guider.
I'm sorry. Attorney Coleman, could you just go over what the change is?
Yes, this gives the county attorney the authority to engage counsel on behalf of any employee of the county in situations where we're conflicted out. I think that, you could argue that such power is inherent in the county attorney role. I know that I think that previously that was how it was viewed. But there's certain language in the contract that I signed that seems to suggest that, the county attorney wouldn't have that authority, would have to come before the board. And there are certain circumstances where it's just not practical to wait until another board meeting. So what this does is puts into writing a policy that I think has been the previous practice. But up to a certain amount, we can just engage counsel on behalf of employees when we have a conflict. If it's above the amount, which I think is $50,000, we would actually come before the board and get board approval anyway. And in any such event, board concurrence are likely to be sought in any event.
So it's got a cap on it. It's up to 50,000.
Yes.
Okay.
Only in those instances where we're conflicted out, we have to get counsel for some. It gives, yeah.
I understand. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, it was kind of vague in the description on the agenda, so I just wanted to clarify it. Okay.
No, absolutely. That hopes that response to your question. I mean, if you have more questions, I'm happy to respond.
Okay. I appreciate it. Thank you. I yield back.
Thank you so much. If there are no further comments, board, we're going to move on to tab number 14. Authorization to reconsider a professional services agreement with Brightwell Talent Solutions to conduct a search to identify a county administrator for Douglas County government for a retainer fee in the amount of $2,500 and 18% of the total base salary, and authorize the chairman to sign all related documents pending final legal review. Director Carter, if you could just refresh our memory, I believe this one came before the board on the 15th as well, and it was certainly did not move forward because there was a lack of a majority for a vote. So you have the floor.
Good morning. Thank you again for the opportunity. Yes, this was not approved on the last Board of Commissioners voting session, but we did want to discuss it a little again now that we have had an opportunity for all the commissioners to meet the two candidates that were moving forward in the recruitment process, as well as wanted to provide just a little bit more detail about the difference between our personal recruiting or internal recruiting and what this recruitment firm can do. Many times when we recruit, we're recruiting people who are actively seeking employment. The difference is that when we work with a professional services engagement firm, they usually go out and seek people for employment opportunities. So they may reach out to people who ordinarily would not see the job ad. I also wanted to point out again that since August of 2022, we've only had about 60 candidates. And out of those 60 candidates, only 2 has even risen to the point of interviews with the board. And so that's really not a lot of employee and potential employees to choose from. And so we did want to bring this back up for reconsideration.
Thank you. Any questions for it? Okay. We're going to move on to the next item.
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner
Sorry.
Geiger.
These buttons are hard to push. Tisha, the 2 candidates that I interviewed were top notch. I don't know where our level of expertise is that we would want anybody that didn't already have experience as either a county manager or a county commissioner. I find this so highly unnecessary. 60 candidates is a pretty good pool, if you ask me. And then to narrow it down to 2, and I was impressed by both of them. I would love to hear from the other commissioners that's pushing this, what they didn't see that I saw. It bothers me that we're continuing to go out and seek when we've already had 60 people apply and then 2 very top-notch candidates qualified. So I would like for this to be a separate business item and not on the agenda, the consent agenda, because this is highly unnecessary. I would be happy with either one of the candidates. I picked one over the other, but I would be happy with either one of them. I don't see what they see that I don't see. And what qualifications did they not have? I would love to talk to anybody that's wanting to go out and pay someone 18% of the base pay just to go out there and look. You may have the same 60 candidates come forward, so who knows? But I thought they were just, I didn't see anything lacking in either one of the candidates. So if you would, the clerk, please do not put this on the consent agenda. So with that, I yield back. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? All right. Did I hear the voice? If not, we'll move on to tab number 15. Approval of a lease agreement for storage space needed for the Board of Elections in the amount of $11,220 to be funded through the department's budget and authorize the chairman to sign all related documents. Director Kidd, Milton Kidd, how are you?
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, Vice Chair-elect, and to the rest of the board, Deputy County Administrator, as well as Assistant County Administrator Stuart Stanley, and to my peers. This particular line item is really an addendum to a current line item. This particular space is already being rented by the Board of Elections under the current year's budget. The reason why it's before this board is because the company that we're currently renting from has exercised their 60-day agreement in order to notify this board of any potential changes to the current contract. The current contract is for $8,880, which is in the current year's budget. That will go to this $11,220 number in next year's budget. This is being reflected by the leaseholders as in an adjustment based off of their current tax allocation. But I would be remiss if I did not take the time before this board to not only mention this lease agreement, but to ask the Board of Commissioners while you are deliberating on departments that we are going to move in the up and coming years, that you all consider the Board of Elections. The Board of Elections is one of the departments that has the most contact with the most number of actual citizens of Douglas County. And right now, our office has to be located, our advanced voting location has to be one of our office locations. And currently the 1,264 voters that voted on Saturday can attest the current allocation for the board is not a large enough space to actually conduct elections. I would like this board to consider this prior to the 2024 presidential election year, which, if every election so far is any indication, we're getting a larger and larger turnout of voters.
Okay, thank you so much, Director.
Yes, ma'am.
Any questions, board, or comments regarding this request for storage?
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Carthen, you have the floor.
Thank you. What time is it? Good afternoon, Director Kidd.
Good afternoon, Commissioner Carter.
So I heard your request, and it is noted that you all are definitely needing more space, hence why you're before us asking for a lease agreement again with the same company that you're currently leasing storage space from. My question to you is in regards to, did you look anywhere else to see if that was a competitive price? Are you happy with the location? And then before you answer all that, I do want to give you kudos because you had us on the news for you and your staff's outstanding work to ensure that Douglas County citizens had the opportunity to vote on the runoff. So kudos to you and thank you so much for your hard work. You have the floor now.
Yes, ma'am. Before I begin, I would like to thank my staff for the fact that Douglas County has been the first in this election season to provide access to the ballot box for our voters. To answer your question, this particular lease space, we're currently operating out of 4 different locations as a department. That is not conducive to the elections and registration policies and procedures and practices. So I would ask the board to consider housing us under one total space. But as far as this current allocation, the adjustment in price is a standard adjustment in price. I believe it's about a 3% adjustment in price, so that's not a ridiculous amount. But we are currently leasing space in 2 other buildings aside from the courthouse when we could transition all of those funds to one location and be able to house all of our election equipment, our election staff, and to be able to have a large enough voting space for the voters of Douglas County, which is why I'm making the plea for the board to consider that. So I'm happy with the space is needed because the equipment is here, but I do believe that there are better options. I have previously come to this board with some better options in previous election years. Now, I have not gone through this particular year and looked at available leasing space, but if given the opportunity from this board, we will look into that and have a plan to present before this board at any point the board instructs us to do so.
Thank you so much for that, Director Kidd. So that was, I knew about the other 2 spaces as well, but I just wanted, again, for the board to hear and again from Madam Chair, efficiency and for financial, it just makes much more sense to have everything in one place. So I would ask if it is okay with you, Madam Chair, and the rest of the Board of Commissioners, that once this election cycle is over, that Director Kidd is given the directive to go ahead and find leasing options and please bring them back to the Board of Commissioners so that we can actually be ready for the 2024 election cycle. It is imperative that we do that and for the sake and safety of the Board of Elections and Registration. And with that, Madam Chair, I yield.
Okay, thank you so much, Commissioner Carthen. Point well taken. But thank you so much, Director Kidd.
So, Madam Chair, do you concur that Director Kidd can go ahead and start looking at other options for the Board of Elections and Registration?
I would ask that he work with our development services, which is Director James Worthington, to see what we can do to find the space that's adequate as we go into the 2024. And that's something bring back before the Board of Commissioners, give us all the specs that are related to the building. And then we'll go from there. I agree that we need to centralize the entire operation. For number one, for efficiencies and convenience also for our citizens. We want them to be accommodated at the 100% maximum level when they come in to vote. That's very important. So Director Kidd, if you work with Director James Worthington and see what we could start, just peeping at some areas, if you could do that.
Yes, ma'am. I will take the charge.
All right, thank you. All right, what we'll do, board, we're going to move on to our next item. And our next item is tab number 16, which is approval of an amendment to the form of an intergovernmental agreement regarding hotel facilities at Foxhall Resort to expand the project with an additional hotel expansion of existing conference facilities and allow them to be financed through conventional financing, and authorize the chairman to sign all related documents pending final legal review. And we have our executive director of developments of the Development Authority, Mr. Chris Humphrey. Hey, Chris, how are you?
Doing great. How are you all?
Okay, you're doing great. You have the floor.
Good, good. Thank you. Thank you all for allowing us to be on the agenda today and for taking the time out to talk with me last week about this. Earlier this year, you all approved a form of resolution of an intergovernmental agreement that allowed for the property tax incentive and hotel motel tax rebate for the Westin Hotel and Villa facilities and conference center at Foxhall. That was greatly appreciated. We immediately got to work on putting all of the legal documents together to go to the bond market, and we all kind of know what's happened with the bond market this year. And it became extremely volatile and not really able to move that part of the project forward. However, the demand for the project has not ceased. Foxhall has been doing a lot of great things at the development, and the demand for hotel nights is still very much apparent and needed to be filled. So what we are looking to do is to expand the scope of the project, to add an additional phase to that that would bring on new hotel rooms and villas, but not take away from what was already approved. The plan is still to move forward with the Westin Hotel and Conference Center, but this will kind of advance some things, add some additional conference center space to some existing facilities. And so that's what we're here to talk about today. I do have Harrison Merrill on as well to be able to share some more updates and detail about what I just kind of described. Harrison, are you there?
I am here. How are y'all doing today?
Doing great.
So just to touch on Chris's point, since we met earlier in the year, the bond market's kind of fallen apart in all intents and purposes with the rising interest rate. So what we're trying to do is basically lead with additional villas in more of a boutique hotel style, which was already part of the project, but really just moved that ahead. The Westin's still in place. As soon as we can get the bond markets ready for it, we plan to move forward with that piece, but really just moving the phase of the villas and the making it really operate more like a hotel and moving that phase forward and using conventional financing instead of a bond issuance to move that phase forward of the project.
Thank you so much, Harrison Merrill Jr. Board of Commissioners, you have any questions regarding this request?
Yes,
and I
ma'am.
see Commissioner Guider, you have the floor.
Hey, Harrison, to just clarify for the public, you are going to go out and acquire your own financing for part of this project, the original agreement that we did earlier this year, right?
Correct. We would be going out, getting individual financing, conventional financing from a bank that allows us to build in kind of stages as opposed to all at once.
So this was part of the agreement to begin with. You're just accelerating it. You're giving it a head start, and the county's not going to be involved other than the original abatement. But the abatement will start sooner than later. And will it apply, the same schedule will apply to the hotel and the conference center?
Correct.
So if you're in year 2 or 3 before you build the hotel, you actually have started the abatement earlier on those 2.
Correct.
Okay. So the county's not out anything.
Correct. It's really more of an update of just that we're moving forward with this piece of the project because it's financially feasible to do now versus the Westin. But it's the same confines as what was agreed to earlier this year.
Yes, and same abatement.
Same abatement.
Of 15 years was the amount of the abatement, but it was tiered starting at year 6, I believe.
Correct. 5 years for
Okay.
and then tiered for the next 10 years.
Okay. So I just wanted the public to know that the county's not going to be out anything. In fact, it may help us in the long run because the abatement starts running sooner before the hotel and the conference center is actually built. Is that right?
Correct. And a lot of this phase will bring a lot more rooms as well. But yes, the abatement will start when this phase is finished.
Okay. Now, in the abatement, sales tax is going to be collected and turned over to the county as normal for any other project. This abatement is not any more than what we offer other industries here in Douglas County. That's why we were finally able to come to an agreement. But the hotel motel tax, what does that do? What happens to it?
So same thing, that'll start with this project, and when the Westin comes in, it'll slot in with whatever year the Westin comes in. So if the Westin's able to come in year 2, then it just comes into the this hotel motel tax rebate at that time. But as you mentioned, it's just accelerating the process to start the project, the abatements, the incentives, knowing the Westin's still planned, but it's looking like it may be a year or 2 out before the financial markets are able to have the bonds financially feasible for the Westin.
Now, the hotel motel tax does not go, not all of it does not go into the county funds, the general fund. It has to be used for advertising projects out here or places to see and places to stay and stuff like that. It is really just to advertise what we have out here in Douglas County. But that tax is going to be just applied to that phase of the project. In other words, travel and vacationing and things like that in Douglas County. They're going to be advertised in Foxhall and the surrounding area.
Correct. Yes, the tax is only on what is produced from within Foxhall, and then that money will go back to promote the 3.5% will go back to promote the Foxhall project through marketing. 4.5% will go back to the project for infrastructure and those other areas defined in the agreement. But it's only for the Foxhall project, though, those taxes are coming from. So if the rooms aren't there, there's no taxes, but with the rooms being there, that tax would go back to the marketing and the infrastructure for those pieces.
Okay, but it's mostly used for marketing.
Correct. 3.5% of the 8% is directly related to the marketing.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I just wanted to kind of clarify because a lot of people may be concerned about we're giving more. We're really not giving more. It's really accelerating the project rather than putting it sitting out there until the bond market turns around. So
correct. Accelerating the project and using conventional financing that we will get with banks instead of bonds for this phase of the project.
But that's between you and your bank.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? All right, well, thank you. Okay,
Madam-
Commissioner. Okay,
Madam,
I heard Commissioner Carpenter first.
oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Commissioner Carpenter, did I hear your voice?
You did. Thank you
Okay.
so much. My question is to you, Mr. Pumphrey. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
So I get the project, and we're excited to see that there will be some movement. But can you talk a little bit about if this will entail any jobs, or what is the benefit to the community of Douglas County in regards to this project moving this way, as opposed to doing it with the Weston?
Yes, yes. So as Harrison mentioned, this is basically in addition to what we've been talking about, and I'm actually allow him to talk about the actual jobs component of that. But it is in addition to the project that you all approved earlier this year, adding those additional hotel rooms on site. And like I said, I'll defer to Harrison on the job numbers that they anticipate for that.
Correct. So Commissioner Carthen, as far as the jobs, what the project allows us to do is build in phases. And so the full project scope had creating about 400 new jobs. This will be phased as a piece of it. We expect somewhere, once this full phase is done, between 30 and 50 additional jobs to Douglas County. We don't have the breakdown of the economic impact specifically for this phase, but as far as the jobs, it's about 30 to 50 based on how HEI, the management company, runs the operation.
Okay, so this will be a separate management company. It will not be you all doing it. It will be a third party that will be handling it. So they will be the ones who are doing the development, the construction, designing phase of it, all of that. That's out of your hands.
We handle all the design, the development of it. Once it's operational, it'll be run by the third-party manager. It's the same manager who is running Foxhall currently and also plan to manage the Weston as well, which is HEI. They're one of the biggest firms, hospitality management firms in the country.
Understood. So when you're talking about design and construction, those are also jobs that I just want to make sure that, you are at least considering Douglas County citizens, and of course, engineering firms and construction firms who are local to the county in regards to this project. I always think about what is the impact positively for my, constituents, and what's the impact economically. It's an exciting project, but I think it can be a win-win for everyone if we go about it the right way.
Oh, absolutely. And actually, both the architect and the engineer are both companies within Douglas County.
Okay, got you. And I would love to know what the impact is. So is this one of those projects where you have Georgia Tech look at what the economic impact could be as well, or this was one, Chris, that was not considered in this, or?
Yes, we did the economic impact. I don't have it with me in front of me right now, but we do have that, and I'll email that to everyone as well.
Okay.
And so to just clarify on that too, the Georgia Tech did the study on the whole project, which is this piece as well as the Weston. So this piece is about 20 to 25% of the overall project, with the Weston being the rest of it.
Got you. Okay. Sounds good. Well, I wish you the best of luck on this, and I look forward to seeing what will become of it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. With that, Madam Chair, before I yield back, Madam Chair, has Mr. Corbin been able to look at it, our financial advisor?
I don't believe he has an opportunity, to my knowledge, to take a peek at it, but I do know that our attorney is next up in terms of speaking, and he may be able to add, because we're not making any monetary changes. I believe financial related changes. They're just making some minor adjustments to allow this project to move forward this time. So if Attorney Coleman may be able to give you some, but if you would like for David Corbin, our Chief Financial Advisor, to take a peek at it, that's certainly something by, at least by tomorrow. That would be great.
That would be great. That's what I was going to ask, if he is at least made aware of it, so that
Okay.
if he wants to provide any feedback to us, that would be good. But I just wanted to ask. So if you can, yes, get it to him. That
Yeah,
would be
I'll reach out to him. Okay.
Thank you so much. I yield the floor.
Okay, thank you. All right, Attorney Coleman, you have the floor.
I just wanted to add a couple of quick points of clarity. The resolution contemplates the approval of a revised intergovernmental agreement. However, the intergovernmental agreement itself, the revised intergovernmental agreement itself, has not been prepared. But what I am proposing is that we have the current intergovernmental agreement attached to the minutes, and the revisions to the IGA are spelled out in detail in the resolutions. So I think if we have the current IGA as revised by, as reflected in the resolution, I think that'd be sufficient to meet the requirements of having the agreement before the committee. So I think that's one point of clarity. The other thing I want to clarify, and I think it was alluded to earlier, is that the portion of the hotel motel taxes that are currently contemplated being pledged to support debt financing would also be pledged to support the conventional financing that's secured. So, and what's not clear to me if it's the same 4.5% for debt financing, or I think it is. I think that's what I understand it to be the case, but that's something that either Harrison or Harrison or Chris clarify. And I do think it makes sense for David to look at it. So those are the points of clarity I wanted to add. Thank you.
Okay. All right, thank you so much, Attorney Coleman. What I'll do, I'll just have Chief Financial Advisor David Corbin reach out to you, and then we'll have just a quick meeting with you and Harrison Merrill Jr., and then also Chris Pumphrey, so we can just make sure we've covered all the aspects that are related to the finance component, to make sure everything is still buttoned up as it was when we voted a year ago on this project. Okay. All right, and it sounds like this is time sensitive, so can we make this happen today? I'll reach out to Chief Financial Advisor Corbin and see if we could pull something. Is this time sensitive? If you all could speak, Harrison, Merrill, Chris, give me an answer, because I got to try to coordinate something quickly.
Yeah, we can definitely speak today.
Okay, so you can do it today. Okay, all right, thank you. Board, any other questions? If not, we're going to move on to our next item, which is tab number 7. Okay, Vice Chair, you have the floor.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I ditto, guys, you got to include our finance team in these things, whether it was Roslyn, whether it's Mona, whether it's David. I get it, but sometimes you expose yourself to like, okay, but what are you doing? That's my first point. I'm not gonna belabor that. Y'all already get this. But I want to drive home, the economic analysis. I'm gonna go back to financial feasibility, which is to my point earlier. So Harrison Merrill Jr., I'm sure you do financial forecasting. You have to look at occupancy rate, like collection rate. You have to make certain assumptions about the marketplace. So you've got some financing, permanent financing that you're teeing up. I'm sure you had a baseline, since this is an extension of your current operation. Chris, I think you explained to me, and I'm gonna let him confirm it in public, that this is an extension to the current villas. And we're gonna add a little bit more into that and add a conference center. Is that accurate?
There are villas. I'll go ahead, Harrison.
Yes, that is correct. So we will be adding to the current meeting space to have a bigger conference center in the current clubhouse, as well as adding villas, but more in a boutique hotel setting than the current villas. But yes, it's an addition to the current villas as well as the current meeting space.
And you get an abatement, right? To explain that, I'm going to just make my point, which is, okay, so he's got to offset his expenses. He has to forecast how is he going to absorb this without any additional support from the board. And if the market shifts even further, But there's no exposure to the board, but he has to forecast the future, his cash flows, as well as certain conditions in the marketplace. And he's got to look out 5 to 10 years because he's got this big note that he's got to absorb. He has salaries that he has to absorb. So in addition to did you do a financial feasibility? I mean, not that it's conditional. I'm making a point here. Did you do one? I know you got the economic analysis. Did anybody do a financial analysis on this?
Absolutely.
Okay. And you're comfortable in that. I guess that's why you changed from the Western to this, and I get it. But it's an object lesson that you got to transfer what you're understanding to other areas. And so I'm looking at, as I always did, Chris, from the very beginning, when this first came in, I gave that 10-year projection. And you and I argued about net present value, IRR, ROI. I'm like, okay, I get Halo, but you want to guarantee bonds? You want to do what? It's a teach point. Like, no. We're getting into high finance, guys. We're to move to a $200 million operation. And we've got to think like a $200 million operation. And be able to look forward and think about, okay, but what is the future impact on this? And I don't need anybody to tell me what I need to think about. We got to learn this. And I'm looking at this like, okay, I get it. I'm sure hopefully you talked to everybody. Have y'all talked to everybody that hadn't heard Commissioner Mitchell? You guys did call me, and I appreciate y'all first reaching out to me regarding this project. So from a District 2 perspective, I'm treating it like I've always done. I know how to look at this. I know I'm looking at it. And so I'll just wait and see what the board finally renders tomorrow. I'll leave it at that. And you, Madam Chair. I'm good.
Thank you, Vice Chairman. Sorry, just had an opportunity to speak to our Chief Financial Advisor, David Corbin, and he said he is readily available once this meeting ends to speak with all parties, which we mentioned earlier, which is, I would love him to speak with Attorney Coleman, Chris Pumphrey, Harrison Merrill, and then we just need all the information that you have, the analysis, all your reports. So you just want to take a peek at them, and we'll go from there. And I appreciate Chris Pumphrey reaching out in advance to the Board of Commissioners for my direction and suggestion, because the board needs to be right at the helm of this discussion and decision that's being made. Okay, but thank you all. If there's nothing else, Commissioner Mitchell, there you are. I'm sorry.
Yeah, just one quick question. So Chris, so that I'm clear, and again, thank you for your due diligence, both you guys, for making sure that all my colleagues are definitely in the know of what this could be and what the plan is on where you guys are going with this. But just my clarity, this is not saying that we're going to discontinue the hotel build out. This is only an addition to. So please make sure you express that side of it, because I don't want to get the misconception that this is in replacement of the hotel. That's not correct. Or am I incorrect in that statement?
You're correct. This is not a replacement. And I sent you all a few documents last Wednesday. One of them was a color-coded map. You can see the Westin. So this is not a replacement of that in any way.
Harrison, anything that, in addition to that? I just want to make sure, because I know it for certain that it's not. But I appreciate that statement there. So I just want to make sure that the general public do understand that this is not a replacement. This is an addition to.
Correct. In addition to the Westin, we're still going to be working hard to get that done as soon as the market kind of opens up a little bit on the bond market side.
Right. And that's the bond side. As my so eloquently stated, my vice chairman state that these are big dollar decisions that you guys are making. So again, thank you, Chris. That's all. I just want to add that addition too. So make sure that we all are clear that this is an addition to, not a replacement of. So thank you again. And guys, hopefully this will just kind of move forward and we'll keep it moving, because it has no effect on us as a commission for Douglas County.
That's correct.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. I yield.
Thank you so much, Commissioner. Okay, thank you so much, Commissioner Mitchell. And what we'll do, I'll get in contact with Dion and we'll schedule a Zoom call or Teams call so y'all could meet today, okay?
Sure thing.
So I have her, I'll get with her in just a second, my executive assistant. All right.
Hey, Madam Chair, just one other, my apology, Madam Chair. So would this be added to the consent agenda, am I correct? Or this will be on the consent agenda, correct?
It can be, or.
I'm just.
Yeah,
that's
right
fine.
now,
That's
it
fine with
will
me.
be
Yeah.
rolling
Oh,
as,
okay.
as part of the consent.
Oh, okay, all right. That's fine. That's okay. All right. Thank you very much. I yield.
Thank you. We're gonna move to tab 17 for approval of a settlement of Emmett Ward litigation and authorize the chairman to sign all related documents pending final legal review. Legal department.
Madam Chair, I'd like to request that this matter be tabled until the next meeting is not ready to go forward at this time.
Thank you so much, Attorney. You said you requested, and this one, we can just actually just not print it on the agenda for tomorrow simply because it didn't go before the public. Is that okay?
That's perfect.
Clerk, did you hear? We just want to remove tab number 17 for tomorrow until a later date. And the attorney will allow us to, he'll inform us when we need to place it back on the agenda. All right, we're going to move to tab number 18 then. Authorization for the County Finance Department to process holiday incentive pay in the amount of $200 for full-time employees and $100 for part-time employees in the total amount of $225,664.71 as authorized, as recommended by the BOC to be funded through general operating funds. Madam CFO Bivens, and then certainly I will ask our attorney to weigh in regarding just the nomenclature of the way it was written early on the actual agenda. You have the floor, Madam CFO Bivens.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, it's good afternoon now. So I was asked by you, Madam Chair, and Mr. Vice Chair had put this on my radar, that the board has given out these amounts to employees around the holidays. And so that's why this is on the agenda. However, Attorney Coleman had some, I think, revisions to the verbiage that needs to be made. So, that's all I have. It was at a request and to add it as we have done it in the past. So we do have the funding for it. From a funding perspective, we will have the funding in that amount, $200,000 to cover the cost.
Okay. Thank you so much, CFO and Attorney Coleman. If you just want to talk about the way it's written, did you have something else?
Yeah, one more thing. Yes, Madam Chair. And it's not in there, but if I'm trying to remember because I don't have it in front of me, but the employees, eligible employees, I don't know if we worded it in there, but those that the full-time would get $200 if they were employed before June 1st, I believe, of 2022. Full-time employees employed after June 1st of 2022 would receive $100. Part-time employees employed before June 1, 2022 would get the $100. Those employed after June 1st, I think, will not receive the pay. That's the guidelines that I received that were used last year. However, at the board's purview, they can change that however they want to. So I just wanted to add that to that as well.
Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. Attorney Coleman, you just wanted to speak about the way it was advertised.
Yes, I know that it was advertised as paying bonuses, but I think you all recall from last year, based on research that we conducted last year, we are not able to provide bonuses to employees for work that's already been performed. Under the gratuities clause of the Constitution, it's very, very clear that we can't do that. We can't provide additional compensation for works that has already been performed. However, after talking with you and others, it was kind of my sense and belief that the real purpose of this is to incentivize employees to continue to work, particularly during a period of time when there are health concerns out there, and to continue to work hard and stay on board with the county, more so than rewarding them for past performance. So given that, I thought the use of, the term incentive pay or, incentive compensation to incentivize employees would be more appropriate. And would meet the legal concerns that might have. So that's why it's changing that on the final agenda to reflect that.
Okay. Thank you so much, Attorney, for clarifying. All right. So if there are no other questions or comments, we'll move on to, we have tab number 19, which is a discussion item. Is the City of Austell annexation application. And we have Bill Schaefer to come for us from Planning and Zoning. Good morning. Bill.
Good morning, Madam Chair, or good afternoon, I guess. As the case is.
That's right. Good afternoon. You have
Sorry.
the floor.
So we have another annexation request from the City of Austell. We processed one small one last year. We have another one this year.
Phil, my apologies. Madam Chair, point of order, and I apologize. I was trying to get off mute. Are we done with the project that we just talked about, the salary deal or the incentive pay, whatever it's called? I didn't get a chance. I don't know if you
I'm so
gave us all a
sorry.
chance to say anything.
Oh,
It
okay.
just kept,
Well, if you could just hold on for a minute, Mr. Schaefer,
sure.
hold your
No worries.
thought.
I'm sorry.
I certainly want to yield the floor to Commissioner Mitchell regarding the holiday incentive compensation. You have the
Right.
floor, Commissioner. I'm so
Okay.
sorry.
Yeah, and that's okay. I'll be brief. Michael, so the name is changing from the traditional bonus, whatever, which we can no longer do, to incentive pay. Am I correct? Is that what you're stating? Sorry, make sure I get that part of it correct.
That's correct. And again, based on my understanding that the purpose of it is not to reward employees for past performance, which is prohibited, but really incentivize them in terms of what they do in the future. So based on my understanding of that being the purpose, then I thought it was appropriate to make that change. And it just happens that also, I think, would be addressed the legal concerns for paying the bonus.
Okay, good. And the other question is to Ms. Bivens. So, Ms. Bivens, lay out the plan is for June 1 or something, those date time factors of $200 versus $100, $50 versus $0.
Hold on just a moment. Commissioner Mitchell, let me see if I can find that spreadsheet that I received when I started inquiring about this last week. Give me just a moment. Hold on, it's coming up. Okay, so what I was advised, how it was done in the past, full-time employees hired before June 1st would get the $200. Full-time employees hired on or after June 1st, so I'll stand corrected, it's on or after June 1st, would receive $100. Part-time hired before June 1st would receive the $100. Part-time on or after June 1st would not receive anything.
Okay. And I'm why just my thought. Why is it that we wasn't consistent with that $50 deal? Just for those after that mark get $50 versus the $100 if they hired before. Part-timers, I'm guessing. Go back to the part. Okay, give me the part-time amount again because I may have missed that.
So that's okay. No, you didn't. The part-time, what I was advised when I asked for the information, and I can't remember if it came from, I think it came from Human Resources, that the $100 part-time people hired before June 1st will be eligible for $100. Those hired after June 1st would not be eligible for anything.
I guess that's, I'm like, why would they just get like half of the other half of everybody else who was hired on the full-time side of it versus $0? I'm just curious. So that number is, okay. Is that how we did it before, Mr. Perry?
Commissioner Mitchell, yes, sir. That is the guidelines that we've used whenever we've had the holiday incentive. I'd be glad to, modify that. No rhyme or reason to it. It's just those were the guidelines we had in place.
Got it. It just seems kind of awkward in hearing that, though. I just kind of would have thought it would have just been half of the half. The part-timers. Just my food for thought, but I guess I'll kind of follow the lead of my colleagues. I don't see why.
Let me add to that. I'm gonna probably have a subsequent discussion and do a little bit more research on the dates, because the dates tying it to how long they've been employed makes it look as if we're preparing them for the work that they did. So if you work this long, you get this much. I don't think that's what we can do. So I want to get some rationale on the dates, and I'll give you guys a call, Fred, about that.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, Michael, you might even spoil the whole moment of getting any. You're gonna spoil Christmas, and you're gonna spoil Christmas with these guys.
It's not my point.
I'm just joking.
I mean, actually, it probably would be helpful if you could rather find it to a particular. I'm just considering it to a date makes it look based on their past performance. That's all. Right. And I'll that.
Okay. So Michael, are you telling me that we're gonna look at not tying it to a date, tied to what?
Full-time versus part-time?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay.
Just
So
full-time. Okay. Go ahead.
Oh,
Go ahead, Ms. Benton.
go ahead, Commissioner. I can wait.
Oh no. You guys are going right where I want you, so go right ahead.
Okay. You know where my head is, right? So if any changes that we make will have a financial impact. That's all I wanted to say. I just did a quick calculation. If you wanted to add, if we keep the dates the way we have them, if you wanted to add the part-time on or after June 1st at half the amount of the part-time that would here prior to that, then it would be an additional $2,200. So it'd be $227,000. However, if we're looking at just going full-time, $200. Let me real quick. I can tell you real quick what it's going to be. That's why I love spreadsheets. So if we change it and just give all full-time regardless of their hire date and all $200, and then all part-time regardless of their hire date $100, the cost would be $242,000, which is about $20,000 more, almost $20,000 more. Just wanted to put that out there for the board to consider. You have all the information.
I appreciate it.
Okay.
I'm not suggesting that we have to do that, but I like discussion offline regarding the dates and what they mean and why those dates, and it may be a rational reason to do it that way. Even with it, we can have that discussion. I'll have the discussion with finance and Fred before tomorrow's meeting.
Yeah, okay, but I understand the dates and why, but just don't totally agree with the part-timers that runs after that time frame getting zero. But okay, at least we'll have the discussion and then we'll decide. And I'm assuming this will be discussed at a later time frame today, Michael, and or with this commission, and then we'll decide on kind of which way we go, because we will do something. I guess I'm gauging. But the question is, what we tie it upon, what kind of date frame, time frame, and all that good stuff.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. I yield, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Commissioner Mitchell. Okay, if there are no
Madam
further
Chair?
questions.
Yeah, again, in defense of the county attorney, we use these words gratuitous. So 14 years, I've seen that word used conveniently to block and obstruct certain paths forward. I'm just listening. I'm like, look at this. Why is this new? 14 years we've been doing this. In 1 year or so, we paused. And it's about language, like, really? Like, we're like, and again, it's like this common thing, like we're finally awakening to the need to put policies and legislation and stuff in play, because again, these invisible rules, and things were pushed out there for political reasons, like to try to bring exposure. And just have the policy in place. Quit hiding, be transparent about what we're trying to do. Do it one time and it's done. It's like we keep coming at these annual decisions, and there's always this, we're trying to, like, come on, guys, take a position, solve it, and move on. But look at this thing. It's always this one. I don't know. Like, okay, we're talking about words. Like, really? We do this every year? And we're just not realizing this, that we couldn't do that, or that's not right. Like, really? Everything we did in the past was illegal? That's my point. Things were allowed. Now they want to get convened about what we're not doing right. But I'm not playing with this. I'm listening to this. Now, for the public say, no, we're good, guys. Y'all got this. But we're sort of tiptoeing. This stuff has been settled. I appreciate the maturity that we're now putting forth. This is not like, no, you ain't got to ease through this. We're going to the table, figure out what we're going to do. But I get it. Take position on whether or not you give a part. I'm fine with that. I'm more about the process that we're going through. I'm sure I'm fine with what I'm looking at. I'm fine that going forward we're going to be fine, but I got to highlight this. These moments, like, why is this new after 14 years? That it was illegal to call it a bonus. But we're convenient when we want to use gratuitousness to block this versus that. But we don't have this overarching, like, okay, we'll be consistent. I'm just saying, I'm listening to this. You know, I was bringing forth the optimization act, trying to clean up all these policies, clean up stuff that historically. It just has been like, man, the public really saw behind the scenes, guys. But we're now addressing. That's what I'm saying. I don't stand down. I don't back up on, deal with it. And tell it for what it is. There was nothing in place. Nothing. And I appreciate you guys' effort, and I don't take what I'm saying personally, don't take the passion that I'm bringing forth, which is the point my peers get it. Now here we are on the field. And we're looking like, okay, they're gonna put bones there. Like, really? We shouldn't even be here. But I appreciate you, County Attorney. Appreciate you, Madam CFO. Thank y'all. Y'all got this. The same person saying got nothing to do with you guys. Thank you for taking this forward. But I gotta mark that for all time history. I said, All right, Madam Chair, I got it. We'll see you tomorrow.
Okay, thank you. All right, we're gonna pivot back to the City of Austell annexation application. Mr. Phil Schaefer, you have the floor again.
Madam Chair, again, so the City of Austell has been asked to annex several acres. The complication for the property, and I'm actually going to share my screen with everyone so they can see what we're talking about here. The issue is it's bounded on the edge of our county with Cobb. And when you have these multi-jurisdictional annexation requests, what we get is an effort to try to change the zoning to be convenient for the applicant. And in this case, we in Douglas County have a portion of the property zoned as heavy industrial already. They would like to use a portion of another lot next to them that is zoned general, heavy commercial rather. And in order to do that, it caused them to have to improve the property, and we asked them if they would rezone to be all one zone district. So when they went to Cobb County to see what Cobb County would ask them to do, they realized they really need to annex into the City of Austell to grab all the property that they're actually purchasing for their use and rezone all of it to HI so that they can install the buildings and the pads and the additional equipment that they wish to do. The company itself is relocating from Atlanta proper. They are a construction assisting engineering firm, and they have a very specialized paraphernalia that they rent out when you're building these big, tall warehouse buildings. And in order to store all of that steel and angle iron that holds up the walls that are being built all over our county and in fact, all over the adjoining counties, you have to have these really long pieces of iron and apparatus to actually grasp these. And that's what was holding them up, was where do we store that equipment? In order to do it, they felt that they needed to annex in. It's 3 acres. There's no real objection to anything that we could find as far as cost to our county. We will always question whether Austell can provide the services that the county can provide. But given the cross-jurisdictional issue and attempting to bring all of it into a single zone district for their use, I think that from their perspective, only thing they could do was annex a piece of Cobb a piece of Douglas and get into the city of Austell to accomplish their relocation out of Atlanta and onto the property. And so we're just recommending no objection be forwarded over to the city of Austell for this annexation request. And with that, if there's any questions, I'd be happy to try and answer them.
Okay, thank you so much. Board, any questions for Mr. Schaefer?
No objections from District 2.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Okay. Any other response, Board? Silence, I'm assuming means no
Okay,
objections. Okay,
thank you.
okay.
If I might add, Phil, and ask you to clarify, the statute sets forth the the bases are upon which a county could object. And I think our review and your review, I think we concluded that there was not really a basis for objection under the statute. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Board of Commissioners, that concludes our agenda, but certainly we tap on the shoulder of our county attorney regarding the executive session. Attorney Coleman, do we need to go into executive session today? You don't need. Okay.
Madam Chair, if we could have a very short executive session to discuss real estate and personnel matters, that would be sufficient, I think.
Thank you so much, Attorney. Citizens of Douglas County, certainly we appreciate you.
And one, it won't take very.
Okay.
And person with potential engagement. Okay.
Okay.
I couldn't hear any of that. Y'all are like, can y'all be clear about what we're doing?
Yeah, I
We're going
couldn't hear him.
in an executive session to discuss potential litigation matter, personnel matters.
Okay. Thank you so much, Attorney.
Thank you.
Citizens, all right. Board of Commissioners, certainly, I will call the executive session. I will call the question in just a second, but let me just assure the citizens of Douglas County that we will return momentarily. Don't have a defined timeline, but certainly we'll return as soon as possible and resume the meeting and close the meeting out. Board of Commissioners, certainly I would grant you a 10-minute break. It is now 2 minutes after the hour. If we could just start the executive session at 12 after the hour of 1 p.m. Board of Commissioners, do we have a motion to go into executive session?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion, Board? We have a motion and a second. We'll call your districts. Please respond. District 1,
Yes.
District 2,
Yes.
District 3,
Yes.
District 4.
Yes.
Chairman, yes. We have a 5-0 unanimous vote, and the motion carries to go into executive session. Clerk Watson, can you take it from here?
Alrighty, you're back live, Madam Chair. The floor is yours.
All right, thank you so much to the citizens of Douglas County. Thank you for your patience. Our executive session has ended and we return back to live and living color. It is now 1:42 p.m. Certainly, I want to yield the floor to our Board of Commissioners. Do you have any type of announcements or remarks that you want to make before we close out today? Okay, being none, to the citizens of Douglas County, I wanted to remind you that we do have our legislative Board of Commissioners meeting tomorrow at 10 a.m. in Citizens Hall. And then also we will have access to the Facebook Live as well. If I'm correct, Communications Department, I want to make sure I don't want to give out the incorrect information.
Yes, ma'am. They will be able to view it tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. on Facebook, YouTube, as well as the DCTV 23 Facebook page.
Okay, thank you so much. And again, citizens of Douglas County, I hope you had a wonderful, fantastic holidays, Thanksgiving holiday, and just wanted to remind you to still be cognizant of the things that are necessary to deal with this virus that seems to be okay at this particular point in Douglas County, but we don't want to take our eye off the ball. So thank you so much. And Board of Commissioners, if there's nothing else to come before this body, this meeting is adjourned. Have a great day.